Paul Thomas Anderson's There Will Be Blood was released in 2007 as an instant classic. The story of an oil tycoon's rise to power in 1900s America, the film was a critical smash, awards darling, and is now acclaimed as one of the great films this century. My name's John, and with me today are a couple of sinners asking for salvation. That's Matt.
They should have put you in a glass jar on the mantelpiece.
And Westy.
You're just a bastard from a basket. Bastard from a basket!
All the Right Movies are the third revelation, and we're talking a 21st century classic. There might be milkshake, there'll probably be oil, there will be blood. Hello and welcome to All the Right Movies. Oil the Right Movies in this case, isn't it?
Wow, brilliant. Let's talk about bread.
The podcast on classic and hit films.
It is.
Today we've slithered out of our mother's filth to talk one of the most acclaimed films of recent years. It's Paul Thomas Anderson and the two Daniels, Daniel and Plainview, as we talk There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
Where he had to deliver some good old-fashioned plain speaking, right?
All right, yeah, definitely.
Yes,
we are oil men.
Before we do that, though, should we mention Patreon, do you think?
I think we should. I think that's a great idea.
So if you're a fan of what we do and would like us to keep doing it, please help support that by becoming an All the Right Movies patron. Patrons gain access to Patreon-only podcast shows and access to our full archive of classic episodes like this one. The archive's pretty huge, and right now there's about 200 hours worth of podcasts to listen to in there and growing. So if you like PTA, Boogie Nights is in there.
Yep.
It is.
And lots of classics. Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Godfather, Alien, all in there and more.
Yep. Absolutely.
If you sign up for that, then you will have struck oil. And if enough of you sign up, so will we. So win-win.
Gold all over the place.
Good news all around.
Yeah.
So to find out more and sign up, please visit patreon.com/all the right movies.
Yes, please do.
For now, though, it's back to the Crazy Oil Prospector. It's There Will Be Blood, and you put this one up, Matt. So why was that?
Because I think this one, it just cut through immediately on release, and it just felt, he's a film people will talk about for a long time. As soon as it came out, people were yelling drainage and milkshake, and I didn't understand why until I saw the film. And I'm a huge PTA fan anyway. Every film's great so far, but this one just feels like a real statement from him. And you mentioned that, John, the last podcast we did before we took a break to do YouTube stuff was Boogie Nights, and I think it's going to be really interesting to contrast how he's developed from that film to this one. And so far, we've never talked about Daniel Day-Lewis, an absolute living legend. So
Yeah.
for a film that you can describe as well, an oil man gets in a conflict with a local pastor, there's a hell of a lot to get into about it.
Yeah.
There is. And for me, I don't really remember this coming out on its release. It slipped under the radar a bit for me at the time, and I think I only really became aware of it when we got to award season, because it was up for so many different awards in so many different categories, like the direction, the writing, acting, cinematography, music, all acclaimed in this movie. And we're going to be talking about all those aspects of the film, obviously. Some big names in there. Paul Thomas Anderson, one of the big writer-directors of the last 20 years or so, and Daniel Day-Lewis, one of the biggest acting talents of the last 20 years or so. Some great and hilarious behind-the-scenes stories as well. So stick around, as this should be a good one.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Also, love milkshakes, me. Bloody love them. I will drink your milkshake. Literally.
$5.
It's a pretty good
Pretty fucking good milkshake.
So, Westy, why There Will Be Blood for you?
It was so big when I'd heard it. I got kind of annoyed when it came out of the cinema because a fair few friends of mine have seen it and they were like, it's fantastic. It's one of the best films I've seen in the decade. It's absolutely incredible. Yeah. And when I hear that from that many people, I start getting pissed off. It's like, I've just got into the white stripes last week. Like, I don't want to follow the trend. Do you know what I mean? And just dive on it and then just be the same as everyone else. I was like, no, I'm going to wait then. No, I'm going to wait. I'll watch it in my own time. And I did. And it's just, from when I was growing up, like watching films with my dad, it seems like every film that has oil in it is just massive. It's like Giant, Hellfighters, Armageddon. It's just like these big, massive films.
I can't believe you've got Armageddon and a There Will Be Blood podcast.
That was a joke. And it's just, I mean, it's brilliant. It addresses so many brilliant issues, and the performances are just so mind-bogglingly good.
Yeah.
The direction's so assured. It looks amazing. It sounds amazing. It is amazing. It follows like the birth of capitalism and the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
It follows all of these kind of really heavy themes. And it's just a brilliant, brilliant film. I've watched it 4 times in the last 4 days, and I don't really think I've cracked it yet. So, yeah, let's get into it.
So when did you watch it for the first time then, if you waited for it?
It would have been a couple of years after, like probably after the award season.
Right.
And it was like, all right, Robert Elswit shot this, and I got it on the special edition DVD that was kind of like a little Bible.
Right.
And you pulled it out, and I was like, right, okay, I'm watching this in my own time. And once that had faded out and everyone else had stopped talking about it, then I was straight on Facebook going, There Will Be Blood's an absolute masterpiece. And I was like, yeah, well, we knew that 4 years ago, dickhead. Which is classic me.
So There Will Be Blood was produced by Goulardi Film Company and Scott Rudin Productions, distributed by Paramount and Miramax, and released on December the 26th, 2007. Filmed in Marfa, Texas and Los Angeles, it was written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson and stars Daniel Day-Lewis as Daniel Plainview, Paul Dano as Paul and Eli Sunday, Kevin G. O'Connor as Henry, Kieran Hines as Fletcher Hamilton, and Dylan Fraser and Russell Harvard as H.W. Plainview.
Lovely.
No women, which is ridiculous.
There will be men.
But crank up the oil, Derek. Up next, we're talking the beginning of There Will Be Blood.
The beginning.
The opening act of There Will Be Blood introduces us to our main characters, the world of turn-of-the-century oil prospecting, and sets the story in motion, and we have 2 big moments to talk about. Daniel Plainview buying the land from the Sunday family that will become the setting for most of the film is coming up. First, though, it's the opening and the introduction to Daniel, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So There Will Be Blood opens in late 19th century America, 1898 New Mexico, to be precise, as Daniel Plainview discovers gold. In a near wordless opening 14 minutes, we're introduced to Daniel, see him getting involved in the oil business and adopt an orphan boy, H.W.
Yep.
Very visual as an opening, Westy. How was
Yes.
it as a way to start the film?
It's an incredible piece of visual storytelling. It's a short film in itself. I think the only lines of dialogue is "There she is."
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Just the way it's paced, the way it moves. Blink and you'll miss it. There's so much in this opening sequence where you have to really engage and watch it, and that's what PTA is doing. And saying you miss a second of this film, you're lost.
Yeah.
It's like missing a train. It's gone, and you can't catch up. It just moves at that pace, but it's slow. So he's basically by himself in the middle of nowhere, with that much drive to just dig a hole in the ground and look for something. And then you see that push to the mountains after he's broken his leg, and you think he's got to get through there to get back to the town. He's got to do that by himself. And that act and that piece of music where it sounds like, the THX advert in the cinema. It was like, and it's got that really foreboding, but it's the minor version of that. It's like the Joker's version of that from like Dark Knight. So, I mean, the sound of the oil swooshing about, all the tools, the sounds of the accidents are so visceral, even though you don't really see anything. It's just so powerfully done through the sound design, and it just keeps punching you in the face and punching you in the face. I mean, even when baby HW starts crying, it's in the score.
Yeah.
It's not actually the sound of a baby. It's just this really high-pitched guitar thing. It's just wailing a little bit just in the background. Again, a wonderful, wonderful piece of very, very confident storytelling from Paul Thomas Anderson. It's like, if you're going to do 15 minutes, from the opening, seeing him sat next to the fire to when he's on the train with the baby, is absolutely immaculate filmmaking.
Yeah, it is a great opening sequence. And first few seconds, I think if you'd stopped the film after 10 seconds and asked me what genre I thought we were watching, I'd probably have said a horror. Because mainly of the music. Yeah. We'll talk about the music from Jonny Greenwood a bit later, but the visuals are just stunning.
It's like Bone Tomahawk, isn't it? It's like a horror western.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. That opening shot of those huge, vast Texas mountains, influenced by The Shining, reminds me of it anyway.
Well, the end is, we'll get to that.
Yeah. And it is masterful visual storytelling with pretty much no dialogue. Anderson feeds us the start of the narrative. Daniel discovers silver, makes a lot of money, takes on HW as his adopted son, and we understand that Daniel's a driven, sociopathic nutcase. I mean,
monster.
Yeah, that shot you talked about there, Westy, when he breaks his leg and the camera pans up and we see he's got to crawl miles. I mean, most people aren't making that, but Daniel does.
and keeps an eye on them as well when they're doing the stuff with the silver and the crushing it. He's like, still looking at them.
Yeah, brilliant.
Really just heading on what's happening. Brilliant signature as well. Fucking fantastic.
Yeah. Incredible cinematography already, and just, I think, a brilliant way to open the film.
Yeah.
And Matt, the opening sequence for you?
Yeah, it's spellbinding, isn't it? I mean, the way it opens with that screeching, discordant music reminds me of the opening of 2001. You know, it starts just with that black screen.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That really unsettling open. That's what it reminds me of. But what stands out to me is how different it is to all those other films, because one point I'll come back to a few times is how much this film signifies how he's changed as a director. Like, you think of Boogie Nights, that ridiculous opening Steadicam shot into the club and around the characters.
Scorsese, innit?
Yeah, crazy, very Scorsese. Or Magnolia opening with that huge montage sequences of all those little individual stories that all tie together.
Yeah.
And then you've got this, and it's so methodical, it's so slow, it's so steady, very patient. Loads of really, like, fascinating close-ups. The characters are all very still in the frame. And the fact that there's no dialogue, I think that just contrasts to how verbose the openings to his other films are.
Yeah.
And it just feels like he's like calmed down as a director. He doesn't need to show off in the same way that he used to in his other films right from the beginning. And at this point, to me, it doesn't even feel like a PTA film. It feels like it's a completely different director. But I think by the time you get to that scene of Daniel hauling himself across that land with a broken leg, you think, yeah, there's just no way I'm turning this off. Like, where's this going from here?
He's gone from like Scorsese to John Ford.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, totally.
Yeah, the opening scene where we see Daniel mining for silver and gold was shot at a real mine. It's called the Presidio Mine in a town called Shafter, Texas. And Shafter was a booming mining town in the early 1900s, but by the time they came to film, there was only 11 people who had lived there.
Wow.
Because obviously you've got to just crawl out.
Yeah.
Wow. 11 people.
11 people, yeah.
You would love that, Westy, wouldn't you?
I'd fucking love it. That's too many.
It's 10 too many. So, what's interesting, because we talk about this being like so dialogue free. The first line in the film is Daniel saying no, and then there she is, and that happens 4 minutes and 55 seconds into it. The next line of dialogue isn't for another 15 minutes. And there was this interview PTA did where he said, well, I've always had this dream where I could make a movie that had no dialogue in it, just music and pictures, and the closest I ever got was the beginning of There Will Be Blood.
Right. Imagine that, though. Go to see PTA's new film and nobody says a word for the whole thing.
It's like The Artist.
Yeah.
We at the end.
I'm surprised his first line wasn't, I'm an oil man. He says it often enough.
He does. I'm a silver man until I'm an oil man.
I saw an interview with Daniel Day-Lewis where he said that the original script, the one that he signed up to do, had no dialogue for the first 30 minutes.
Wow. Yeah, I can see that. I don't even think the film needs dialogue, to be honest.
I'd happily watch that.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have a lot to say in the opening of There Will Be Blood, Paul Thomas Anderson, but he has plenty to show us, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which gives him a lot to say.
Yeah. Having been introduced to Daniel and his adopted son HW, the story starts to move, albeit still not exactly at breakneck pace. But having been visited by Paul Sunday informing of his family's oil-rich farm in California, Daniel heads west with HW. There he visits the Sundays to negotiate a deal for the land with family head Abel and his other son, Eli. Daniel tries to screw them right over.
Oh, absolutely. Quail prices.
How's this scene, Matt?
I love the intriguing nature of it, how it's set up, because it's Paul who is the first one who approaches Daniel and then disappears from the film. And it's like the opening, it's so carefully paced. I love that push-in you get on Daniel's face as Paul's talking about the land, and Daniel slowly gets more and more interested in what he's got to say. And it's really great visual storytelling, because before this, when Daniel's been negotiating with other townsfolk, you never see them, you only hear them, you only focus on Daniel. But here, you're giving Paul equal focus, because this is different. It's not, Daniel just pulling her over on townsfolk and then walking away. But Paul, he's important in this discussion, and there's that nice little bit of foreshadowing you get where that's that shot of Paul, and he's framed in between Daniel and HW, because Eli, Paul's double, will obviously come between Daniel, or try to.
Nice.
Daniel and HW later. And I really like how one of Paul's first questions to Daniel is, what religion do you practice? And he's almost stumped by that. Just
like them all.
Like them all. I enjoy all faiths. Like, it's such a bullshit answer.
Absolute bollocks as well.
Absolute bollocks.
You can't argue with it.
No, you can't. But that's the thing. Like, religion is Daniel's one weakness in the film. It's the one thing he can't, buy off, or he can't get a hold of. He can't threaten it. he just can't comprehend it. He can't comprehend that religion is as important to money to some people, because money's the only thing important to him. So, he just doesn't get it, and that really just sets up nicely the conflict that's going to come with Eli once Eli arrives on the scene.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent scene. I think, like good filmmakers often do, PTA doesn't waste a line of dialogue.
No.
He's always pushing the narrative or revealing character or giving us exposition, and there's lots here. Daniel tells Abel he wants to buy the land to go quail hunting, so we know he's very comfortable lying out of his arse to get what he wants.
Yeah.
And there's a moment I like when Eli wants to pray at the end of the scene, and he takes Daniel's hand, and Daniel like wrenches it away, and he's furious. You can tell he's raging inside.
Yeah.
Sets up the baptism scene later on nicely, and this scene also sets up the scene between Eli and Abel later on when Eli's telling Abel he's a stupid man for letting Daniel walk all over them. Yeah. Although to be fair, Eli doesn't do much better.
Not really. Not really.
And Westy, how's this one for you?
Fantastic stuff. And when you see Eli for the first time bringing the wood over and he drops it, and he turns around and looks at him and he's kind of like, are you the same fucking person? Are you taking the piss?
Yeah.
Like, who are you? And he never lets on. He never talks about Paul. I would be the first thing I would say is like, you look just like Paul. And it would just be like instinctual. That's why I'm not a bastard. But I guess like, and he knows that. And when they find the oil's great, he lights it on the stick and he knows what the crack is. But it's just the way that the shots hold in this sequence. It holds on that wide shot, framing everybody on the table. And holds on that for ages. And again, it's the foreshadowing, because all HW does in the opening first act is listens. He never speaks. All he does is listen. And when that's taken away, his power's taken away, because he sits and just looks at every situation, and you see him framed in this. And it doesn't push in until they mention oil, and then it pushes into a mid-shot, and it takes Abel straight out of there, and there's just the three of them talking. And then when he starts talking about the church, it punches into a close-up over the shoulder, back and forth, and it gets more intense. It's just the way that's framed and how that's done, and it's so subtle but so brilliantly pulled off, I think, by everybody. It's the shot choices here and the dialogue and the performances that just really, really make you sit down and go, right, I'm in for this ride.
Yeah, I love all those moments where Daniel's sort of teaching HW about searching for oil, because he's sort of teaching us at the same time, and lets us know not just has Daniel know what he's talking about, but so does Paul Thomas Anderson. So I feel like we're in safe hands. He's done his research.
Yeah, and he's a genuinely nice person with HW. He's genuinely just wants him to. He wants him to be his partner. He wants her to succeed, but he just when he spots a weakness, he has to get rid of it. It's the same way. That's why he sees religion as a weakness. You know that's not making you who you are. You're not thinking straight. You just it's pie in the sky. Your head's somewhere else. You believe in something that doesn't exist. It's stupid to him. So he needs that kind of grounding, and you really get it from the character here.
And that is the first act of There Will Be Blood. No blood yet.
Not yet.
Or milkshake yet. But we have met all of our main characters and engaging from the off, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
The director.
There Will Be Blood was directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, not to be confused with Paul W.S. Anderson.
Definitely
Different
not.
styles.
Not.
Yeah. It's a world of pain right there.
And There Will Be Blood was PTA's fifth film after Hard Eight, Boogie Nights, Magnolia and Punch Drunk Love.
Yeah.
There Will Be Blood though, Westy. How's PTA's work here as director?
Very, very refined. He's worked his way to this point, and you can see
word.
He's almost, well, yeah, no pun intended. And he's really hit a peak here, and it's wonderful to see this kind of pace in a film that came out in 2007. I think I've heard Tarantino talking about this film, and he's best mates with PTA, and he's jealous of this film. I think nobody else was doing this, not to this standard. It's really John Ford. It's really old school, but it's really new. Putting Day-Lewis in there and making him as such a character actor really, really gives the film some gravitas. And I think Paul Thomas Anderson's really enjoying himself here. He's really having a good time, and he's really taking his time, and he doesn't care if you don't follow it. He doesn't care if you don't like it. I think this is just his film where he's went, I want to make a classic Hollywood film on location, in the elements. Any of this on a soundstage, it loses it completely. Any of this with any CGI work, it loses it completely. It's all practical. It's all classical. It's all old lenses, old cameras. It's really, really beautiful filmmaking to the biggest epic scale that you can get, but at the same time a very simple and very boiled down story about what everybody understands. And he nails it, absolutely nails it. But while they were editing this, Robert Altman died. So I know PTA was close, and that's why this is dedicated to Robert Altman.
Oh yeah.
Right, yeah. I think just watch Boogie Nights on Magnolia, and I think Altman's influence on Anderson's pretty obvious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Huge cast, yeah.
I mean, he'd already made some really good films before this, Paul Thomas Anderson, but I think his skill as a director seems to jump quite a lot with There Will Be Blood. Apparently, they'd often shoot scenes in different locations and then decide which worked best, so there was a real fluidity to the process.
Yeah.
But one of my favourite scenes, the PTA is all over, is where Daniel literally rubs Eli's face in the mud,
Yeah, yeah.
which is hilarious.
There will be mud.
It starts with that great shot of Eli setting out to meet Daniel. He walks past the huge oil basin, like the filthy capitalism that he hates so much. And then we get a point of view from Eli as he walks towards Daniel. The shots are all low-angled, putting Daniel in control. And then when Daniel shoves Eli into the mud, it's shot from ground level, so we're kind of down there with Eli. It's all classic stuff, but it works really well. And Daniel saying, "I'm going to bury you, Eli," foreshadowing the end, I think, surely.
Yeah.
Also, it is really funny. Like after this scene where we cut to the Sundays having dinner and Eli's sitting there caked in mud. Really funny.
It's like he's been baptised in the oil almost, isn't it? Like he's been rubbed in the capitalism. Like, fucking deal with it. Where's your church now? Amazing.
Yeah. Rubbing mud in his hair.
Yeah.
Slapping him about like a little kid.
But yeah, I mean, great direction. Paul Thomas Anderson's best film for me, no question.
Yeah, same.
And Matt, Paul Thomas Anderson here for you.
Yeah, it's amazing work, and it goes back to what I said in the opening. You know, we did Boogie Nights, and I think me, Westy and Luke all felt the same. It was directed by somebody who had so much confidence and so much talent, but it was all very much, I can do Scorsese, I can do Scorsese. There wasn't that much individuality to it.
Yeah.
This, it's like he's grown up a bit, and he's realised that I need to develop my own voice and stop borrowing other people's to the extent that I did. And there's still influences in there. We've mentioned John Ford, I think Terrence Malick as well, Sergio Leone as well. But for the first time, I just think I'm really, truly hearing his voice as a director. It's just this vast visual canvas that he hasn't really done before. But it's contrasted with the fact that he still made a film which is this like really intimate character drama, and that contrast is really striking. It's still very much what all his films are about. All his films are about messed up relationships between people or families. There's a family element to Boogie Nights, there's a family element to Magnolia, and there is here as well, Daniel and HW and Eli and his family. So he's making a film with themes and concepts that are very familiar to him, but he's put them on screen in a way he's never done before, a way he's much more mature to realise he doesn't have to show off in the way that he used to. And it's just brilliant to see that development. And I know that he got himself into a certain headspace for this film during editing, because he would take his editors out for dinner and they'd have one specific night where the only thing they would have is steak and straight vodka. And the idea was, well, that would keep them in the mentality of Daniel Plainview.
2 steaks, whiskey, water for him, and some good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Daniel Plainview's mentality, one that you want to be in too much.
Yeah.
He's an absolute
He
madman.
only eats steak in the whole film.
And since the film came out, it's been reported a few times that PTA watched a certain film every night before filming.
Okay.
You know what film that was?
No.
Boogie Nights.
His own film.
Yeah, loves your own shit.
It was The Treasure of the Sierra Madre,
Oh, right, yeah,
course
of course.
it is,
Yeah.
1948 Western by John Huston.
Yeah.
Anderson has since said that how many times he watched it's been massively exaggerated, but he said that he was inspired by some of the visuals and the storytelling. So I think there's your next Sunday film day, Westy.
Oh, yeah.
Treasure of Sierra Madre, steak and vodka. You set?
That was last Sunday.
Doing it already.
Doing it already. I mean, PTA wanted to film in California and the area where the film's set. He and the location scouts drove all over the state, but couldn't find anywhere there that looked like California in the early 1900s, as it changed so much. So he ended up filming most of the film in Marfa, Texas.
Yeah, there was more than 11 people lived there, though, probably, I think.
Probably.
So before we sign off on Paul Thomas Anderson as director, we have one final question. So a benefit of being in All the Right Movies Patreon is that we'll answer your questions on the show, and we have one of those now from Jacob Perry.
Hello, Jacob.
Hello, Jacob.
Hello, Jacob. With a name like that, he could be in There Will Be Blood.
He should
Jacob Sunday.
Jacob Sunday Perry.
Yep.
Luke Perry's his twin brother.
So Jacob has asked, it's implied at one point in the film that Plainview pioneered the development of the first American oil rig when he sketches out a mock draft. What other origin stories of significant inventions would you like to see on the big screen? Interesting question there from Jacob. For some context, the point where we see Daniel do his sketch is in the largely word-free opening sequence we talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you think, Matt?
I mean, there's been a lot of films like this recently, haven't there? There's been the Air one about the footwear.
Oh, yeah.
Was the one about Tetris a few weeks ago with Taron
Yeah,
Egerton?
with Egerton.
Yeah.
I thought you meant pixels there with a Sandler.
That's a totally different word and a totally different film.
Totally different concept.
Do you want to play Tetris, John? You mean Pixels?
If Jacob wants a serious answer, I think like the invention of radar and sonar, particularly during World War II, how they had to really accelerate the development of that, because both sides were trying to get the best kind of radar and sonar system they had to outdo the other side. I think that could be interesting.
I think Hedy Lamarr played a part in that as well.
Yeah,
didn't
Hedy
she?
Lamarr, yeah.
The famous actress. Yeah,
Yeah. She
That'd be
was
good.
like a pioneer in that field, which
Yeah.
is really bizarre. But if we want like a slightly less serious answer, an actual invention that's changed my life,
Which we do.
nail clippers. Like, I hate long nails. They look and feel horrible. And you remember, like, if you tried to cut nails with scissors with your other hand, it's just a nightmare. So, the invention of the nail clipper, absolute godsend. Who thought of that?
Wow.
Then you could have Plainview saying, "I'm a nail man."
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if the filmmaking's on a level like it is here, any of the world-changing inventions would make a great movie, I think.
Yeah,
The printing press, the light bulb, the telephone, penicillin would all be great.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see a movie about the guy who invents compost, because then we could have Daniel Plainview walking around saying, "I'm a soil man." That could work. And then there will be Mud Westy. Perfect title.
There you go. Get Biff Tannen in there.
Yeah.
Always. Every film has him in.
Hates compost, hates manure. Invented it.
So studios form an orderly queue for that.
Wow, yeah. Sounds like a pile of shit.
And Westy, what invention would you make a film out of?
The Big Mac. The humble Big Mac. It's why I watched The Founder, hoping I would get some insight into the Big Mac, and it never works. It just goes to cheeseburger, and it's like, oh, Jesus Christ, that's not why I'm watching this. The Big Mac or the Whopper both changed my life for the better.
What about a Big Kahuna burger?
Well, that's fictional, isn't it? I'd like to know what was in the Big Kahuna burger, but I do think it's McDonald's. I think it's McDonald's quarter pounder. Just call it Big Mac.
Le Big Mac in France.
Le Big Mac, yeah, in France, obviously.
So at the Oscars that year, There Will Be Blood was nominated for several, including Best Picture and Best Director for PTA. Mm-hmm. Lost out to both, though, to the Coen brothers for No Country for Old Men.
Yeah.
The right choice, do you think?
That's a really tough one to say,
It
because I
is
do
tough one to
adore them
choose.
both, but I do think this is a more accomplished film, to be
I
honest.
would agree.
Yeah,
Slightly
I would agree. No Country
slightly.
is great,
Yeah.
but I would go for this.
It is fantastic. This is like a milestone, I think. You can look at this and go, wow, he's trying something different.
But despite missing out at the Oscars, There Will Be Blood has gone down as one of the great films so far this century, and for us, right up there among PTA's best.
Yeah, for me, definitely.
The cast.
Paul Thomas Anderson's fingerprints are all over There Will Be Blood, of course, but the same can also be said of the cast. There's a wider cast in the film, but two main characters, and we're talking about them both. That's Paul Dano as the Sunday twins Paul and Eli, and we're starting with the main character, aren't we?
Oh, yeah.
So Daniel Day-Lewis is Daniel Caldecott Plainview, an oil prospector from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. We follow Daniel's journey from the end of the 19th to early part of the 20th century, finding oil, then a son, growing a company, committing murder, and generally being a lunatic.
Yes.
How is he? And Daniel Day-Lewis playing him, Westy?
I mean, it's hard to express, isn't it? He's just so dynamic and so engaging and so electric on the screen. When he's not on the screen, you're kind of just looking for where he is. Where is he? Get him back, get me a full-on close-up and give me lots of dialogue.
Yeah.
It's just beautifully done. I just love everything about the character and the way it's portrayed. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I love him in every film that he's done. He has never, ever, ever turned in a bad performance. No. I mean, Gangs of New York, I love him in that. It's very,
incredible.
very close to this. My Left Foot, he's incredible in that. And like Last of the Mohicans, he's incredible in that. Like, I'm not just saying he's good, he's incredible in these roles.
Yeah.
And once he gets that idea of who Plainview is and he knows that he can run with it, and he does run with it, and it's a beautiful thing to see. What a bastard. But I absolutely adore the fact that he's such a bastard.
Yeah.
It's so believable, the way he commands everyone around him, the way he just instills fear. And it's just when he turns and he gets Mary and puts her on it, no more hitting. No more hitting. And he threatens to slit the guy's throat in the saloon. I've told you what I'm going to do. You believe him.
Yeah.
I really wish this had been his last role.
Some way to go, wouldn't it?
Evan, my 6-year-old, came up to me and said, "Dad, I want to be an actor," I would put this on and say, "That's how good you've got to be then." That's
Terrify
what
him.
you've got to do. Because that's the best you could ever see. It's just absolutely amazingly
Pushy
engaging.
parent, that one.
Pushy. You know, give him the truth. He's got to know the truth. Watch that, do that, and you will be. It's just, it's absolutely flawless. It's brilliant, brilliant stuff. I mean, there were rumours that Day-Lewis went to method for the role, that he constructed an oil derrick in his home in Ireland to get into character. Like, that's outrageous. I'm just going to build an oil derrick here. All right, fine, yeah, no problem. But, I mean, it's just, it's magnificent. Everything, even the way he smokes a cigarette. I haven't seen that before. It's just, he looks kind of like over his hand at it in some parts. Beautiful performance.
Yeah, Day-Lewis said that he didn't do that, but you wouldn't be surprised, would you?
No,
Probably,
I wouldn't be surprised.
probably stole someone's baby.
I bet he did.
I mean, as an acting performance, Daniel Day-Lewis has received loads of praise for this film, and rightly so.
Yeah.
I think he's really well written as a character too, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Daniel is clearly a high-end narcissist and sociopath. His whole life is about power, control, dominance over others.
Yeah.
That scene where we see him talking to Mary Sunday about her dad beating her,
Yeah.
and he's saying he'll look after her, and then the camera pans and we see Abel was sitting there the whole time.
Yeah.
Such a great moment, because we think, oh, maybe he's all right, actually, Daniel.
Yeah.
And then we see, no, he doesn't care about Mary. It was about dominating Abel.
Yeah.
It's there through the whole narrative. The scene I mentioned before, when Daniel wrestles Eli to the ground, he does it because Eli demands his money. And it's exactly the same when he tells Tilford from Standard Oil he's going to cut his throat.
Yeah.
He thinks Tilford's advising him about HW.
Yeah,
it's
his
like,
family here.
how dare you tell me what to do? That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
We talked about Daniel's disdain for religion. I mean, being a non-believer back then was much more rare than it is today.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's because he's such a high-end narcissist that he can't accept anybody having superiority over him.
Nah,
Not
nobody.
even God.
Yeah,
Even
exactly.
God.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. He goes after royals so he can get rich, so he has control. When he flies into a rage, it's because somebody else tries to take control from him. His narcissism drives almost every decision that he makes.
Yeah.
And it's such a great portrayal, I think, of a narcissist. One of the best in cinema. Outstanding stuff from both Day-Lewis in the performance, but also Paul Thomas Anderson in the writing for me.
Yeah. Just to give him that space as well.
Yeah, he knows you can trust him, doesn't he?
Yeah, of course. 100%.
And Matt, the two Daniels for you?
Yeah, he's all right, isn't he? It's, not bad.
That'll do.
Not a bad few months' work turning in this performance. Just absolutely gigantic. And he actually starts off quite grounded. But because Day-Lewis is so good, he knows when to turn the valve off and when he can just erupt. And he's quite sparing, and when he chooses to do that, which makes it all the more effective. And I think the most effective scenes are when you just see that rage bubbling beneath the surface,
Always,
little glimpses of
Great.
it. Like you just mentioned when he tells the guy he's just going to come in and slit his throat. That's just dropped in out of nowhere in that conversation. The other fella's like, what? But I love that scene where Eli walks into his office and thinks he can boss Daniel around, telling him, oh, I'm going to bless the derrick, so this is how we're going to do it. And you can see the irritation in Daniel's face. Just like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let's make it 4 o'clock then.
Yeah. And then just completely forgets about him when he gets to the actual ceremony.
I don't think he forgets about him. That's totally on purpose.
Just on purpose stares him
Brings
out.
Mary up instead.
Yeah.
Fucking yes.
Yeah, amazing. And he can be really funny when he wants to, when he sees the Standard Oil guys again, and he just goes up to one of them, goes zzz, 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 in his face. Really funny.
He puts the napkin on his face.
He puts a napkin on.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Yeah, it's amazing performance.
Well, I think it's probably hard for us to imagine anybody else but DDL playing Daniel Plainview, and it seems that was true for Paul Thomas Anderson too, as he wrote the part specifically for Daniel Day-Lewis.
But you would, wouldn't you?
The producer,
of course.
Joanne Seller, said that if Day-Lewis had said no, the film might not have been made.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And Anderson was so keen to get Day-Lewis that he sent in the script before it was even finished.
Right.
Bit desperate, maybe? That?
Not desperate, just ambitious. Yeah. There's a difference, there's a fine line. But I mean, even the start of the film, it took me a good maybe 3-4 watches before I realised, shit, that's Daniel Day-Lewis right at the start.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't recognise just that massive beard, and he's just underneath
Yeah.
everything. And I just thought, is that him? Is that not? And I thought that Daniel Plainview was the introduction to the character, was the signature, and he was buying
Right.
silver off the guy.
Right.
Okay.
And that's what I thought was happening.
He looks great. Oil all over his face and stuff like that.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, Day-Lewis was a massive fan of Punch Drunk Love, which I don't think gets talked about enough. I think that's where Sandler's been. It's an incredible film. It's absolutely fantastic. He always wanted to work with him. He read the script. He liked it. He said he was drawn to the film because he thought he could explore the dark recesses of his psyche with Daniel Plainview. And it was appealing to play a character who was so unlike himself, which, again, if that's, I would imagine Daniel Day-Lewis is an absolute sweetheart.
Yeah.
A sweetheart, but what a bastard.
Yeah.
And that's
I know,
just how good it is, really.
Yeah, no one's going to admit being like Daniel Plainview, though, surely. Imagine you said, I took the role because Daniel Plainview was exactly like me. Jesus.
Yeah. This is a no-brainer. I can do this. Just turn the camera on. It's me Monday to Friday.
I think so. He did love the writing, but Paul Thomas Anderson did give him room to improvise as well. So that speech he gives to the people of Little Boston, we talking about building schools and bringing bed to the town. That was all Day-Lewis. That was his improv.
Yeah.
Great
it's
improv, that.
good. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
When he's talking about the bread, and, please don't get upset when I
Yeah.
mention this, but
Yeah.
it's just the way the camera angle's just higher up, as if he's just a little bit more sullen and a little bit more on their level. It's brilliant.
It's all done in one shot, that as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
It starts
it is.
in that room. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I know that Paul Thomas Anderson loved that improv when he said, it was delicious. It was plain view on a platter.
Yeah.
Lovely.
It is.
It is.
It's so Moorish. I wish it was like 9 hours long.
And he's got a pretty distinctive voice as well, Daniel, hasn't he?
A
Yes.
bit like Sean Connery.
Well, apparently.
When you do it.
Apparently, Day-Lewis worked on the part for over a year. And before they started filming, PTA sent Day-Lewis some old documentaries about the period to inspire him. And Daniel Day-Lewis also read some letters written by men who really worked in the oil fields at that time.
Right.
He said that the letters were full of sentimentality, love and loss.
Right.
Heartbroken guys. These oil work.
Yeah, you can't express that to a fellow man working in the oil kind of fields back in the day. Oh, guys, I feel a little bit sensitive.
Yeah, it's not going to go down
Yeah,
well.
do you want to listen to me poem I've just wrote for our lads? Nah, just send it. Get out your fucking face, dickhead.
And another link to Treasure of the Sierra Madre, Day-Lewis listened to recordings of its director, John Huston, as well, and took some
Right.
inspiration from his voice. He does sound a bit like him.
Yeah.
He does. If you watch Chinatown, he does sound like him.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah. Also, Daniel is based on a real person. There was a well-known oil tycoon called Edward Dehaney, and Daniel is based loosely on him. So they were from the same place, Fond du Lac in Wisconsin. Both worked for Geological Survey in Kansas and were miners before going into oil. We see Daniel in his mansion at the end of the film, which is the Overlook, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Those scenes were filmed in Greystone Mansion in Beverly Hills, which doesn't seem like Beverly Hills at all.
No.
No.
Looks incredible. That house was built by Dehaney for his son, Edward Dehaney Jr.
Oh, wow.
And Daniel's famous milkshake speech at the end of the film is loosely based on transcripts from hearing of the Teapot Dome scandal, which involved Edward Dehaney, which I don't really know much about, but sounds really intriguing. The Teapot Dome scandal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the next film. The sequel to this.
There will be tea.
There will be tea, yeah.
Yeah, not going for a pint with him.
Yeah,
Definitely
fuck
not.
that. No chance.
Yeah, Daniel's based on a real person and also apparently a hugely iconic fictional person. You know what I'm talking about?
No?
So it's been said that Anderson based Daniel on Count Dracula in some ways.
Wow, really?
Okay.
Sounds mad, but there are some examples in the film. So the first time we see Daniel in the mine shaft, he's bathed in darkness, protected
Right.
from sunlight. Daniel thirsts for oil, which is the blood of the land.
Right,
Daniel's nemesis is a preacher, like a man of God. And by the end of the film, he's living all alone in a huge castle-like mansion, like in Transylvania.
I mean, that's pretty loose. Carrying a cross on his back at one point when he comes to the Sunday Ranch. That means he's Jesus. I mean, I can see it. I can see where you're coming from. I mean, like, Dracula's the ultimate bastard, isn't he? So, like, it would be
Yeah.
good if you had to get invited into the Sunday Ranch and, like, you know, have little bits on that.
Villagers with pitchforks,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
And on there will be blood. The costume designer was this guy called Mark Bridges, and he said working with Day-Lewis was a learning experience because, as you'd expect, Day-Lewis made the clothes really important to the character, particularly the hats. He loves a hat,
Yeah.
Day-Lewis.
Oh, he does love a hat.
Gangs of New York, Lincoln, this, Mason hat.
Yeah.
So Bridges showed Day-Lewis 3 hats and said, just pick the one you like the best. So he took them home for 3 days for choosing the one he wanted. And Bridges said you would know when Day-Lewis was in character because he'd have the hat on. Just 3 days to choose a hat.
One hat a day, 24 hours per hat.
Yeah.
Let's give this one a bash. Right, where we're going.
Does seem like his wife must be going spare. Like, Daniel, man, you don't need, like, spend all day with 3 different hats.
If he's wearing the hat, stay away from him.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Don't go bowling with him. Definitely not.
No.
I'd love to have that power, though. If someone's pissing you off and you just go to put your hat on. And they're like, oh, Jesus, here he goes. And after the finished filming, when Paul Dano was asked what it was like to work with Day-Lewis, he said, I read the script, but hearing it come out of him is another level. I was just going, holy shit, he's so powerful. But you can see that in like Eli's performance and Paul's as well. He's just kind of almost taken aback by how good it is.
Yeah, he's massive. D. Lewis, isn't he? Absolutely massive.
Too big for everyone in the film. Too big for a massive oil fire. Like, he's bigger than that. He can put it out by himself when he wants to. It's just massive.
And to finish on the two Daniels, we have another Patreon question, this time from James Ozzypew.
Hello, James.
Hello, James.
So James has asked, how do you guys rate DDL's performance here compared to other great performances over the years? Specifically, James says his two all-time favourite performances, which are Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Gene Hackman in The French Connection.
Okay.
A couple of massive ones there.
Yeah.
What do you think, Westy? How does DDL here compare to those?
All very memorable characters, all very character-defining performances, and all almost kind of career highs for all three. I mean, I love Nicholson in The Shining, but he's so brilliant in Cuckoo's Nest. He just brings it. It's just another level of energy. And I think Hackman does the same thing. Obviously, when you've got a cop drama, all of a sudden, where the cops aren't just wearing suits and ties and they're bumbling around like fucking idiots, you know, he kind of owns that character. Pork pie hat, another hat, always great. You know, Nicholson's got a hat in Cuckoo's Nest, and we've got a hat in There Will Be Blood. So I think we're on the hat level here.
A hat level performance, yeah.
Hat level performance, yeah. The greatest performance if you wear a hat. Yeah. Indiana Jones. Yeah. What else are we going to explore? But yeah, I think for me, they're all very, very different films, and what they do is they bring the A game to each film that they're in. So I think Day-Lewis is absolutely perfect for this, but you couldn't put him in Cuckoo's Nest, you couldn't put Nicholson in this, you couldn't put Hackman in this, you couldn't put Hackman in Cuckoo's Nest. So I think they all just sat. And for a fan of cinema and a fan of cinema history and a fan of watching films over and over and over again, I'm so pleased that those three performances do exist, because they make the films what they are, which are classics.
Lovely. And Matt, Day-Lewis versus Nicholson versus Hackman for you?
Yeah, very much in agreement. I think it is, this performance, I'd put it up against any performance you want to name, to be honest, is one of the greatest, but it's like Westy says, they're all just so different, which is why they're all great. You know, Hackman's, it's all about the realism, fitting in with the realism of the film. It's not really a movie star performance. Nicholson, that is a proper movie star performance, bringing all that energy and flamboyance and charisma that he has into that character to give it a real tragic arc. But Day-Lewis is different in this one in that, you know, maybe apart from the first 20 minutes, it's not really about the realism, and he doesn't really care about giving Plainview any kind of arc or sympathy. It's a performance I felt really instantly iconic. And so, yeah, if someone was to say their favourite three performances were Hackman, Nicholson and Day-Lewis in this, I'd be like, yeah, fair one.
Yeah, absolutely fine. Yeah. You got 20 showing, Martini.
For his work on There Will Be Blood, Daniel Day-Lewis won his second Oscar, much deserved.
Yeah.
And now I think we might call it one of the great lead performances this century.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
The second cast member we're going to talk about is Paul Dano. Playing dual roles in the film. We see him first as Paul Sunday, but it's as Paul's evil twin, Eli, where we see Dano most. Involved in the negotiation for the sale of the Sunday farm, Eli's a preacher who's always looking to get a bit extra for his church. We see him fight with Daniel, then baptise Daniel, before being murdered by Daniel in the brutal final scene. He's a false prophet, Matt, apparently.
And God is a superstition.
What do we think of Eli / Paul Sunday and Paul Dano?
Oh, he's so good, and it just must be the most difficult thing in the world if you're an actor to be told you're playing a really weak character, but don't give a weak performance, because you're going toe-to-toe with Daniel Day-Lewis in the majority of the
blown
scenes.
off the screen.
Yeah, exactly. And that must be so tough, because Eli as a character is obviously no match for Daniel, but you've still got to be interested in him, and you've got to believe that he is somehow an irritant to Daniel along the way. And what this performance reminds me of like John Cazale in the Godfather trilogy, because in that he was up against, you know, alpha male James Caan, the amazing arc that Pacino had to play with, and he was snivelling weak Fredo, who accomplishes nothing in his two films, but that performance is incredible. It's every bit as good as everyone else's. And that's the same for Dano.
It's like Dog Day Afternoon as well. It's a similar vibe.
Similar,
Yeah, exactly. It's a similar vibe I get from Dano in this, because Eli is pretty much a charlatan himself anyway.
Yeah.
But he has this real odd quality to him that makes him intriguing as to whether he's going to be the good guy or the bad guy, you know, when it gets to the end. And like Day-Lewis, surprisingly funny at times. We mentioned him getting smacked around in the mud, but the way he's shrieking when that's happening to him, that's really funny. But then, and we've said, you know, it's funny when it cuts to the scene at the dinner table and he's had their cake to mud, but then that eruption of rage he has at Abel, and he launches himself over the table at him, pins him to the ground. Completely believable. It's like, don't underestimate Eli. There is still something to this character, and I think Dano, he's just brilliant at putting all those complexities on screen.
I agree. I think he's excellent. I think the best compliment I can give him is sort of what you said, Matt, that he's playing opposite one of the great actors here in Day-Lewis, giving arguably his best performance, and Dano somehow holds his own against him.
Yeah.
And Eli loves hamming it up in church, doesn't he?
Oh, God, he
Loves
does.
it. During the exorcism scene, that thing he does with his voice.
Get out of here, ghost! I will come you.
That's it.
Yeah, nailed it.
Donald Duck. Some great subtle character moments too. I like it when Daniel opens the well in front of the town folk. Eli's asked Daniel if he can bless the well, and Daniel says yes, but then does it himself. Eli can't complain as the well's been blessed, but you can tell he's raging that he hasn't got his moment.
That walk away,
Yeah.
he goes that white track, he's just stumbling off there.
Brilliant. I mean, like Daniel, he's all about himself.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big reason why Daniel dislikes him so much. They're both very selfish, but Eli, in Daniel's eyes, I think, is very dishonest about his self-centeredness.
Yeah.
Daniel says it all when he sees the exorcism and says, it was a good show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great line.
Yeah.
And I mean, Daniel was only 23 as well when he did this.
I know.
Does amazingly well.
He says hell of a show as well, doesn't he? So it kind of puts him down.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant.
And Westy, how was Paul Dano for you?
I think Paul Dano's fantastic in this film. I think he's really, really brilliant. And like you guys have said, he does hold his own. I know he got a little bit of criticism from certain people when the reviews came out saying that he obviously hasn't got the gravitas that Day-Lewis has, but who has? You know, he's really got to pull this off. And what he really does for me is pulls it off as that dual performance, because I feel the character of Paul does have the better of Daniel. He does, because he can stand his ground and he wants his money and he knows where the shit is and he's not getting involved and he's a very strong character. And then, you know, at the end, he's got his 3 wells and $5,000 a week. I think that performance is incredible. As you go from Paul, who looks pretty much the same, and you go to Eli and he's a completely stripped back version of that.
Yeah.
And it's a really brilliant way to do it, because it's not really highlighted. It's not really made a big thing of. It's just, you don't know if it's Paul or Eli or kind of all the way through the film, or whether that's the same person or whether it isn't, or whether they're twins. It's never really explained.
Yeah.
First time I saw it, I thought there might be a switcheroo coming where it
Yeah.
turns out they're the same person, because you don't see Paul again.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got from it. And then the way that he brings that real fragile nature, but that determination, that makes him a powerful person. Yeah, I think his performance in this is just absolutely brilliant.
The thing is, though, about him playing the twins, he was only originally cast as Paul Sunday, and there was
Right.
another actor called Kel O'Neill who had been cast as Eli, but they got a few weeks into shooting, and PDA decided it just wasn't working with O'Neill, so he got the boot. So he then went to Dano and said, well, if I rewrite this so Paul and Eli are twins, can you do it? Which shows how much
Couple of
faith
weeks
he
in.
must have had in Dano to go, actually,
Yeah.
he can do both.
Yeah.
And there were rumours O'Neill left because he was too intimidated by Daniel Day-Lewis, but apparently that isn't true.
Yeah, Kel O'Neill said it just wasn't clicking between him and Paul Thomas Anderson,
Yeah.
and he's given up acting completely now, retired from it.
Does he?
So
All
Day-Lewis ruined his life.
Left off in the mud scene.
Yeah.
But also, that means whereas Day-Lewis took over a year to prepare for the part of Daniel, Dano had like 4 days to prepare
Yeah.
for Eli.
Yeah.
His best performance, do you think, Paul Dano's?
Yeah, I think he was brilliant as the Riddler. He's just getting better.
Yeah.
I think he's just getting better. It's really hard to say someone who's 23-year-old, that's his best performance. I don't think we've seen his best performance yet. I think it's a fucking incredible performance.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's his best, because I think he's got a lot more in the locker.
Very good in Prisoners as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's great in Prisoners, yeah.
There Will Be Blood catapulted Paul Dano's career. He was nominated for a BAFTA and has since starred in some big and successful films. Looper, 12 Years a Slave, Prisoners, The Fabelmans, and, like Westy says, he played the Riddler.
Did.
Yep.
Very good.
No Jim Carrey, though, was he?
Who is? Imagine Jim Carrey against Daniel Day-Lewis as Eli. Spinning his cross around. Get out of here, ghost. Well, alrighty then.
There is a wider supporting cast in There Will Be Blood. Kevin J. O'Connor as Henry and Kieran Hines as Fletcher Hamilton are both good.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a bit more about Daniel's son, H.W. later. But our main two there, Daniel Day-Lewis and Paul Dano,
Yep.
two great lead performances.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Sensational.
This episode of All the Right Movies is sponsored by BetterHelp. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is, therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help, or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships or at work, not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now, you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And, special offer to all the Right Movies listeners, you can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/ATRM. That's betterhelp.com/ATRM. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode.
The middle.
Into the second act of There Will Be Blood, we're well into the narrative and a couple of big sequences.
Yeah.
Eli's baptism of Daniel, well, it's crazy. And coming up, first though, we've got a highly explosive moment to talk about, don't we?
Really explosive.
Oh, yeah.
So with the drilling around the Sunday's land well underway, things take a turn for the worse for Daniel. After a gas pocket at the derrick blows, the drilling infrastructure is destroyed and HW left permanently deaf. The big set piece of the film, how is this sequence, Matt?
It's incredible. There's been some really nice foreshadowing to it with Eli not being allowed to bless it, which he then, throws back at Daniel, what happened to HW wouldn't happen if you had let me bless it. The worker dies in it. So it all adds the sense that this will is going to be bad news. But when it does blow, it becomes a sequence which is so visually striking. It's almost like PTA doing an action set piece for the first time ever. I love all the handheld camera movements. And when that music kicks in, you think this could just be a silent film again. You don't need the dialogue. It's just really vivid filmmaking. And that image of it burning away into the night sky, and that camera just pushes in on Daniel's face when he's covered in oil. Just immediately thought, well, that's an image for the ages, that one.
Yeah, it's pitch black as well, isn't it?
Pitch black, yeah, it looks amazing. But it just ties all together thematically so well also, because when we first meet Daniel, he's blowing up the land, he's hacking into the rock. He's always battling against the elements. He's in this constant fight with nature, and this is just, the natural consequence of that, It's one thing to dig your way into the ground, but now the elements are fighting back, and now he's got fire to deal with. But, the thing is about him as a character, he's up for that fight. He isn't daunted at all. When he looks at Kieran Hines, he goes, what are you looking so miserable about? It's like, he's not fazed by this.
Ocean of oil under our feet.
Yeah, exactly. He's the only one who can tame this fire, the only one who can get it. It's all about him against the earth and what the earth can throw at him and how he'll defeat whatever does throw at him. So, this is just the next stage of it, and it's a brilliant sequence.
It is, yeah. Explosions and fireballs left and right.
Yeah.
In this one.
Incredible.
It's like Die Hard.
Is it?
I know that the inspiration for the oil derrick explosion, it wasn't Die Hard. It came from Giant, you mentioned it, Westy, the 1956 film with James Dean and Liz Taylor. That's one of PTA's favourite films, apparently.
Right.
And there's an oil geyser blows in that. We see another example of Daniel's narcissism here that I was talking about. After HW has been rescued and taken away to safety, Fletcher asks Daniel if HW was okay. Daniel says, no, he's not, and just carries on staring at the fire. And it's Fletcher who has to go and check on HW. Awful, that.
Yeah, it's
Father of the Year.
heartbreaking.
Plainview.
Fletcher does everything.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a huge sequence. It is, for someone who's not an action director, really well executed as a set piece.
Yeah.
And Westy, how do you find it?
I find it incredible. I think it's just a beautiful visual representation of Daniel's ambition and how out of control it is.
Nice,
and
yeah.
when it does take a hold and it does catch, he just has to watch it. He's in awe of it. He's in awe of himself. This sequence is why Elswit won Best Cinematography at the Oscars. It's this sequence. And it's incredible. Just the way the times of day are changing, and he knows it's going to look beautiful if you do it at dusk. He knows it's going to look even better if you do it in the middle of the night. He knows how to get the silhouettes. When they're celebrating, when that tower falls, and you see Daniel elated, and he's just, yes! And it's just shot in silhouette. It's perfectly covered in that oil, and he's just completely taken by the whole thing, and he knows he's won at that point. But I think the score from start to finish, I mean, it sounds like Reckoner from In Rainbows. I know Jonny Greenwood did this, but it's just that percussion, like, that's why this is the reason I haven't bought the soundtrack. So if I listen to this independently, I'll have a panic attack. If I get this on vinyl and I'm just like making the dinner or something, then this bit comes on, fuck, I can't handle this. This is impossible to listen to.
Running around with a big mallet.
Just putting fires out left, right and centre. Smashing my house down. Yeah, it's got that real vibe to it, but I do think the score here really, really resonates and really works and adds that extra level of drama, and they're just running around and smashing bits out of the ground and just trying to get this thing knocked down. And then there's that silence after the explosion, and they put the dynamite in there. It's just, that's it, right? We're in. We know what we're doing. What a set piece. Absolutely incredible.
I mean, there was this interview where Elswit said this sequence was a nightmare because they knew it was going to be tough. So it was the only scene they fully storyboarded because it was going to be that difficult. And the original plan was they were going to shoot it off over 2 nights. But the first night, they found they couldn't put the fire out because the wood was too dry. So Steve Kremen, who was like the supervisor of special effects, he said, look, it's going to collapse before it burns out. So you need to get everything you need right now. So there's this huge rush to get all the shots they wanted before it collapsed. And the only one they didn't get, and this sounds like it would have been amazing, was a shot looking down from the top of the derrick at Daniel 200 feet below. That's the only one they couldn't get.
That does sound like a great shot.
Yeah.
And Steve Kremen, the effects supervisor you mentioned there, he was also the effects supervisor on Jarhead. So handled the giant flaming wells.
in that.
In that scene on Jarhead, they mentioned Jimmy Dean from Giant as well.
Ah, right.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And then Dickens lost out to the Oscar to Elswit for ripping off Jarhead. So then he did it again in Skyfall. I mean, the film was mostly shot in Marfa, Texas, like we've said. And No Country for Old Men, we're talking about Dickens, was shooting there at the same time. And there was one day when There Will Be Blood crew were testing the pyrotechnic effects that you used during the oil derrick explosion scene that we've been discussing. It caused a huge billowing smoke cloud. I mean, you can see it in the film, even if they're just testing it, but that is ridiculous. So you could see it for miles around, and it meant the Coens had to shut down production for a full day on No Country for Old Men because that's all they could see in the background. I mean, Dickens was fucking furious. He's like, what's he doing there? Jarhead! Piece of shit, Elswit! And then lost it.
Yeah, apparently when they found out both films were shooting in Marfa, the Coens booked up all the rooms in the biggest motel in town.
Bastards.
And PTA called them sneaky bastards.
Really Plainview, that's ironic.
Totally Plainview.
Big moment in the film there then. Devastating consequences for HW. Daniel, though, not a care in the world.
No. He's
What
got
a
oil.
sequence, man. What a sequence.
Moving on a few weeks, and by this time in the film, things have changed a lot for Daniel. HW has been sent to a school for the deaf. Henry Plainview was turned up, claiming to be Danny Boy's long-lost brother, and after it turns out he's not, Daniel murders him, as you do. As a result, Daniel must repent for his sins, and there's only one man can help.
Help.
Eli baptizes Daniel, slaps him round a bit, and humiliates him in front of his congregation.
Yeah.
Eli's favourite scene, this one.
Yeah.
How was it for you, Westy?
It's incredible. Baptism. You boys are just dumb in the bag of ham. It's a fantastic piece of work because you can see Dano just going, right, I've really got to bring it here because I've got to slap Daniel Day-Lewis around a bit. And he does, and I think it really holds up. And it's just some incredible dialogue. Just give me the blood, Lord, and let me get out of here.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's just doing it because he's abandoning everything that he knows through sheer greed that he wants to succeed. And this is how far he's willing to go down. And you know that he broke his leg in the opening scene, but when he goes onto his knees and he goes onto that leg and you see that wince of pain, as if he's never done that before. It's like, oh, this is so fucking... Right, I'm going to swallow it down. Just give me the blood, Lord. I've abandoned my boy. How I feel every time I drop the kids off at school. I've abandoned my child. I've abandoned my boy. It's incredible, incredible work that he realises that as well. And that he gets to pull that out of him. But I think it's just the real testament to the character and the performance that you just go, he doesn't mean any of this. And then when he's actually baptised and he does that whole shakes it off. It's like, yes. And all he says is, I've got a pipeline. And he knows he has. Yeah. It's just a brilliant piece of work. He allows himself to get smacked all over. But it's great foreshadowing for what we've seen already when he baptised Eli in the oil and slapped him around. Now he's being baptised, and then it comes to the ending where it goes and it happens again. So there's 3 great moments, and all of them are incredibly powerful. I mean, any film with just one of these in them would just be like, wow, that's an incredible piece of work. 3, and he's not even trying. He's just put 3 in there. Just an incredible, incredible set piece. I love it. I love the way Eli is in this. But yeah, it's Day-Lewis for me all the way. He's just that scream and that close-up. Perfection for me.
Yeah, massive, isn't it?
Yeah.
a couple of top actors on top of the games, and it is some sight. Day-Lewis' delivery when he's going, "I've abandoned my child," is
I
incredible.
would love to have been just in the congregation,
Yeah.
just sat in the church as an extra, just going, fucking hell, I'm never going to be a good actor, mate. I'm going to give up now. It would have been like watching that on stage, but like with about 20 people. It would have been incredible.
It's fantastic. Looks like his face is going to burst at one point. It's crazy.
It's so good.
And I think this is one of the 2 times in the film where we see what Daniel deep down really wants, and that's companionship or family. We see it here when he talks about abandoning HW and his face explodes.
Yeah.
And the other time we see is when he finds out his brother, Henry's an imposter,
Yeah.
and Daniel kills him and then cries.
Yeah.
Cries for what he's lost, or rather, never had in the first place.
I think he cries because he's reading the diary of his real brother. I think that's when it hits home, and that's what he wants, is that realism.
Yeah.
He wants just absolute, like, trust with somebody, and he can't trust anybody.
Cries for what he's never had, I
Exactly,
suppose.
yeah.
Also, while I've abandoned my child, does it remind anybody else of Billy Zane shouting, "I have a child" in Titanic? Every time.
I won't abandon my child.
It's the only time those 2 actors have ever been compared.
Imagine Daniel Plainview on the Titanic.
That'd be amazing.
In his own lifeboat, rowing out. Fuck you. The Titanic on fire. Him just smoking.
He's not going back for anyone.
No.
And Matt, how was this sequence for you?
Yeah, absolutely love it. Love how it's Eli's one moment of triumph in the film. And he milks it for all it's worth. And you can't blame him. Like, we've established religion as Daniel's weak point. He can't argue against it. He hasn't been able to buy his way out with Bandy. Bandy makes him do this, and he wants Bandy's land.
That's important, yeah.
Which is a really important plot point. And you can see how uncomfortable he is to sat there, like, when Eli's first asking, are there any new members there? And Daniel's just like a sulky kid, like, nah, I wouldn't do
We're
it.
doing this. Yes.
And then he has to. And Eli knows Daniel can't do anything. He has to go along with everything that Eli tells him to, and he has the time of his life here. You know, tell him he's not speaking loud enough for the Lord. Louder, Daniel. Really funny.
Yeah.
Loves it.
Really rubbing it in about HW, because he mentions him at first, and then he kind of rants about something else, but then he'll keep dropping it back in, like, you abandoned your son. Like, every time like Daniel thinks he's over it, he keeps dropping it back in. It does make Daniel look weak, and there's always in the film this ambiguity. How much does he love HW? And I think this really brings home, he probably does deep down. He doesn't know how to express it.
Yeah.
What is funny, though, is how bad Eli slaps look. They look really bad, those slaps across the chops. But Daniel still has to sit there and take them. And what really fascinates me, right at the end, you see Daniel say something to Eli once he's been baptised and just before he shakes his hand.
Yeah.
And you can't hear it. I'd love to know what that was, because I wonder if that was an out-of-character moment.
Because Eli is completely reserved from that point. He just kind of looks to the ground and is like, oh, for fuck's sake. I would imagine it's something about the pipeline.
You reckon?
Yeah.
I wonder if that was improvised by Day-Lewis, because Dana looks really shocked.
He's really shocked. Like, he's floored for the rest of the scene, to be honest. But, I mean, if them slaps had landed, he couldn't have done it with any kind of power, because Eli hasn't got that kind of power. It has to be like that.
Yeah.
It has to be like a wet flannel, almost. And he's like,
it is,
is this all you've got?
Yeah.
Is this all you've got? Come on, then. And he's given it everything, and it's still not enough. I think it's fantastic.
Something else I like about this scene is how PTA shot it, or rather when he shot it. When he was putting together the shooting schedule with Joanne Seller, Anderson made sure to shoot this scene the day after the film, the one where Daniel wrestles Eli to the ground.
Oh, really?
So getting roughed up was fresh in Paul Dano's memory.
Nice.
Mud in his hair and mouth.
You are a weak man, Abel.
And I know there's this really interesting deleted scene in the screenplay, which never made it to screen at all. They didn't even shoot it, but it still gets referenced later on, and it's Daniel tells Henry, the guy who turns up and says he's his brother, he says to Henry, "My cock doesn't work." And then would see them both later with prostitutes, which is why Eli says in this scene, Daniel has been lusting after women.
Right.
Yeah, I'm glad that scene was deleted. Far too much information for my
I mean, that dialogue doesn't really sit anywhere else in the film, does it?
No,
I mean,
it
it's
doesn't.
really, really thought through, really educated, really intelligent. My cock doesn't work. Crap.
Turn into Brian Glover.
Yeah. Still too
Whoever.
Channeling Glover, dear Lewis.
That's the only way to deliver that line, surely.
The middle of there will be blurred. The big scenes start to come thick and fast. And in those couple we just discussed, two of the biggest.
Oh, amazing.
Fantastic.
The crew.
Paul Thomas Anderson is a director who likes to work collaboratively, so his key crew members are always worth talking about.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to do now. Jonny Greenwood is the composer and Robert Elswit as director of photography are coming up, but we're going to start off with the writing.
Yeah.
So There Will Be Blood wasn't just directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, it was written by him too.
Yeah,
Collaborated with himself.
he did.
This was his fifth credit as screenwriter after Hard Eight, Boogie Nights, Magnolia and Punch Drunk Love. How's the writing here though, Westy, on There Will Be Blood?
I mean, he really knows what he's doing at this point.
Yeah.
It's much like the direction. It's very refined. There's not a bit of dialogue that's unnecessary. There's ad-lib where it needs to be. I think the visuals would have been in the screenplay. I think if you'd read this, even like Dear Lewis read, the first draft wasn't even finished and he wanted to do it. Which I think, holds a lot to the way that the narrative flow and the way that it just builds. You cannot have one scene without another. None of this can be cut. And I think that's on the page. You can always, it is like a novel almost. It's like watching a novel.
Yeah.
It's one of them very, very rare films where you just kind of all the way through. I think The Green Mile's the same in that kind of adaptation. I think Shutter Island's the same in that kind of adaptation. I think this is the same. Not that I've read the book, but I just feel like it is a novelisation and you've just got chapters. Not scenes, not acts. I think you've just got chapters. I find it hard to know where Act 1 stops and Act 2 starts and where's Act 3. I think it's all very much in this building blocks of the chapters and how he does it. It's got a real pay attention vibe to it. Like if you miss any of this, you're done for, like I said at the top. You can just see that he's just very, very into this and very, very much from the start knows exactly how big it's going to be and how good it's going to be. This is PTA arriving fully formed and going, this is what I'm doing, this is how it sounds, this is how it looks, get it done.
Yeah, I think the writing's top notch. Really strong narrative and has a lot of themes. I think the strongest ones are probably greed and control. They're both personified by Daniel, which I talked about before, but I see some other themes too. There's a recurring theme of family, rather the lack of one.
Yes.
The point that Daniel's how he is, partly because of a lack of family or friends, is obvious and hammered home by the fact that both of his family connections in the film, HW and Henry, are based on lies.
Yeah, false, yeah.
Yeah, capitalism v religion is a pretty strong theme shown in the struggles between the self-made millionaire in Daniel and the man of faith in Eli. Capitalism wins out in the film, as I think it did around this time in America, in real life.
Yeah.
I think my favourite, though, is the critique of the American dream. Daniel basically is the American dream. He dragged himself up from nothing by his bootstraps with his own blood, sweat and tears, and he ends up a rich man. But he achieves all that at the expense of others. He steals, he hurts and loses his son, he's a murderer, and he ends up a hateful, lonely man. So, I mean, how good is the American dream, really?
Yeah.
Not very, according to this.
Well, yeah.
You can talk about loads in the writing, narrative, character, dialogue. It's all there, all strong, and really strong themes in the subtext too, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah, love it, big fan. What I particularly love, though, is how many times you think it's setting something up to go one particular way, but then it swerves, and it just has some really unusual plot developments. Like Daniel, I mean, I say adopting HW basically takes him, raises him as his own. But you think, okay, this is how it's going to develop Daniel as a man. He's so intent on making money, but this often is the one thing in his life that's going to change his heart, or they'll drift apart and it'll feel like this big tragic thing. But it's not like that. Like HW does become his own man and they do have this huge falling out, but Daniel doesn't care. There's no character development for Daniel there. He just keeps falling further and further into this like moral abyss, and HW represents what he could have had. And then secondly, and we've mentioned already, the whole thing about Eli and Paul being twins, and I know obviously part of that is due to the casting fire and that we talked about. But again, it does feel, and you mentioned, John, it feels like it's set up to have some plot switch, some significance later on. Like, was Eli trying to con Daniel all along? That's how it could have gone. But it doesn't go that way. It's just you never see Paul again. He just not on the ranch. He's just off doing his own thing. Really unusual.
It's just real life, isn't it? It's really boring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's the last one is when Henry turns up, Daniel's brother from another mother. Again, you think, okay, he's going to be the new right-hand man, or he's going to bring Daniel down somehow, or team him with Eli, and they'll bring down the oil empire, blah, blah, blah. But again, no, doesn't go there. He gets murdered, which has absolutely no comeback whatsoever for Daniel. He just gets away with it. Just another really striking plot development, which just tells you how like unusual this film is at a writing level. So sets us up for numerous ways we could go in terms of narrative, but it never actually goes there. And I think that's really impressive to be able to pull that off and for it to still feel satisfying.
I think the payoff of that murder is that it's Bandy's tracked and he knows that he's done it and he has to repent. So if he hadn't done that, he wouldn't have to go to the church. And like I say, it's all these building blocks where it just works, and you don't go, oh, well, that's a bit obvious. It sounds like real life. You know what I mean?
The plotting is excellent.
Yeah.
Really excellent. So in about 2004, PTA was working on a new screenplay. It was a drama about two warring families, but he was struggling with it. Then he came across a book that he loved, and it became the basis of There Will Be Blood.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know the book and the author?
It's called Oil, isn't it?
It's called Oil.
Yeah, I don't know who wrote it, though.
Yeah, it was called Oil and written by Upton Sinclair, which was published in 1926. So surprised I haven't read it yet. PTA said that he felt it was collaborating with Sinclair rather than adapting him because he only used the first 150 pages of the novel, which is outrageous. So there are a lot of differences between the book and the film. The character names are different. In the book, the main character is called J. Arnold Ross. That became Daniel Plainview.
Yeah, in the book, his son's called J. Arnold Ross Jr.
Right.
So he names him after himself, which I think might have been a good character detail, as Daniel's such a narcissist.
Yeah.
But obviously, he went a different way.
Yeah. I mean, the time period changes too. Sinclair's novel was set in the 1920s, but PTA moved it about 20, 30 years earlier, which I really think works.
Yeah.
Definitely. That was the beginning of the oil boom
Yeah.
in the US, which I think that's a great change.
Yeah. I mean, that's just so ballsy. Taking somebody's novel about
know.
oil and going, it's good, 150 pages, I'll have them, and then I'll just change the fucking timeline? What on earth?
It's a good job he was dead, Upton Sinclair, by this point.
He's fucking furious. Like, what,
He's
do you
Stephen
want to
King.
come and see the film that we've done from your book? Now, like it. Who's Plainview?
So we've already mentioned Edward O'Heaney, who was the inspiration for Plainview, but other characters in the film are also based on real people. So, for example, Daniel's business partner is H.B. Aylman, played by Barry Del Sherman, and there was an actual oilman called H.B. Aylman.
Yeah, H.B. Aylman worked with Edward O'Heaney too in real life. So,
Right.
full circle.
Okay,
Go on.
cool.
Life's a circle.
Circle of life.
Yeah.
And then the two standard oil guys who see a fair few times in the film. One of them is H.M. Tilford. He's played by David Wachowski. And then J.J. Carter, played by Tom Doyle. And they were real standard oil perspectives, those names.
Yeah, those scenes with Tilford. Daniel threatens to cut his throat, which is outrageous.
Brilliant. And then drinks his whiskey.
Yeah.
And the next scene. I told you what I would do. Fucking terrifying.
Yeah. For writing There Will Be Blood, Paul Thomas Anderson was again nominated for an Oscar, but he again lost out, again to the Coens for No Country for Old Men. Sneaky bastards.
Yeah.
Bastards.
Still, though, some great writing here from PTA.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. If you'd had a hotel room, you probably could have done 200 pages.
Moving on from the writing to the music, and the composer on There Will Be Blood was Jonny Greenwood. Westy's boy, innit?
That's my boy. Yeah.
Known mainly at this point as the lead guitarist in the miserable British rock outfit Radiohead.
My favourite band of all time.
Jonny Greenwood made his debut in feature films with There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
Westy, you love Radiohead.
I do.
So I'm guessing you like the music here.
I love the music here. It's so brilliantly done, and really, it's quite forgettable. Because if you haven't got the visuals to go with it, you can't go, well, what was the theme from There Will Be Blood?
Yeah.
You just you know about the string swell of that at the start, and there's kind of like that pastel dance at the end with the violins. It's very Barry Lyndon and it's very Kubrick, and it's got that kind of upbeat nature. But there's some bits in here. I mean, again, it's just like the visuals. It's kind of blink and you'll miss it. There's some really, really beautiful moments in it. But I think for Jonny Greenwood to get a hold of this and just go, yeah, I'm just doing this. There isn't a melody, there isn't a theme. He's not trying to be John Williams. He's just trying to create texture. Yeah. And I think that's the best description of this soundtrack. It's just got a texture to it, and it doesn't overtake what you're looking at. It just really reinforces the visuals. And I know he's made lots of records with Radiohead and The Smile, and he's done lots of things since this, but I think for his debut for a soundtrack, it's very, very self-assured. It's very, very brave. It's very, very good. But I could not listen to it without context of the film, because I think it would just drive us fucking insane.
Yeah, the music is superb. I think Jonny Greenwood's kind of the unsung hero of the film.
Yeah.
I mean, not so much here, with Westy singing his praises, obviously. But I think the word I would use to describe the score is unsettling.
Yeah.
At times it's very string heavy and beautiful. At times, like during the Oil Derrick set piece you talked about, it's percussion driven and chaotic. I think some of the standout pieces for me are a track called Future Markets, which plays when Daniel buys Abel's land.
Yeah.
Sounds very Bernard Herrmann-esque to
Right,
me.
yeah,
That.
Yeah.
And a piece called Daniel Plainview. That music is terrifying. It totally sounds like a horror movie soundtrack. Mirrors some of the themes we talked about: greed, death, the dark side of religion. I mean, like you say, Westy, it's not John Williams or Jerry Goldsmith.
No.
It's not catchy hooks or anything like that. But I think it's stunning music. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, complete agreement. It's what you said there. The film does feel like a horror movie in a lot of ways, and I think the music is so much a massive part of that. And the part that sticks out to me, it's when Daniel and Henry are like staking out the land and they're on horses, and they come to the brow of a hill, and it reveals this massive shot of the beautiful ocean.
Yeah.
And you just see, you know what, if that was scored by John Williams or Howard Shaw or Goldsmith, any of those guys you mentioned, you'd have this like big, swelling, sweeping orchestral piece uplifting. But Greenwood, it's just like really weird percussion and strings, makes it completely unsettling. Instead, it's brilliant work, it really is.
Greenwood's music was performed largely by the BBC Concert Orchestra, and he said the creative process was that he wrote hours and hours of music, which I can totally believe. But he and Anderson stripped it back to 33 minutes together. And Greenwood said, I tried to write to the scenery and the story rather than creating specific theme tunes for characters. It's not the kind of narrative that would suit that. And he's absolutely correct. That's exactly what he's done.
Imagine a Daniel Plainview theme. What would that be?
Just razor blades on strings, I think. Yeah.
As well as Jonny Greenwood's music, there's some traditional music in there too. 2 Christian hymns I heard, sung by Eli's congregation.
Yes.
One's called There Is Power in the Blood, which I think seems to link back to the title. And also one called What a Friend We Have in Jesus.
Oh, one of my favourites.
Should have had the congregation singing Paranoid Android.
Imagine.
That would have fit. I mean, even though Jonny Greenwood's score was very well received, it wasn't eligible for Best Original Score at the Oscars. That was because it used parts of some music from he'd written previously for a documentary called Bodies Gone.
That's a shame. Yeah. That's a real shame.
It won Best Score at the Westies that year, though.
Fucking right it did.
On to how the film looks, and we're talking the cinematography on There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
The DP on the film was Robert Elswit. In a movie career going back to the early 1980s, he had an eclectic filmography.
Massively.
Shall we say?
Yeah.
The Sure Thing, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, The River Wild, and Return of the Living Dead Part 2. Some of the biggest. Then Paul Thomas Anderson came along, and he and Elswit worked together on Hard Eight, Boogie Nights, Magnolia, Punch Drunk Love, and then There Will Be Blood. What a transformation.
Yeah.
So, how's Elswit's work here, Matt?
He's like everyone else. He's just bringing the absolute best he can possibly do to serve the story. And what strikes me about what he does is this film still has clear visual references. So John Ford, John Huston, I mentioned Leone, Terrence Malick, but it still feels very individual. And I think Elswit deserves a lot of praise for that because it looks really classically Hollywood, but it is also on the other hand still very much a PTA film. And by now, they're working together so harmoniously, they can do that. So it's this lovely combination of huge, epic shots combined with really claustrophobic interiors. So the whole film has this really unique feel, and I think Elswit deserves so much of the credit for that.
100%. I love the cinematography. I love the colour palette.
Yeah.
Lots of earthy tones that come from the landscapes, production design, and the lighting to give it a very realistic period feel.
Yeah.
That kind of palette can sometimes give films too much of a muted look, I think, but not here. It's all still very striking in how it looks. I think a bit of a PTA trademark is that his shot length is way above average, and this film kind of exemplifies that. There's a great shot when we first get Little Boston, when we start on the train tracks, and then pan to the right and follow Daniel's car as it comes into town. It's superb.
It's past the station as well and then just catches up with it. Yeah, it's great.
Brilliant. I know that Robert Elswit insisted on shooting on film, not digital, because he thinks digital offers none of the texture or grain that he wanted here, which is surely for the best. And I think there's a Kubrick influence here too.
Massive.
There's a moment after the oil derrick explosion where the camera's behind Daniel and we watch him sitting observing the fire for quite a while. That always reminds me of Kubrick. It's just stunning work, I think, start to finish. Looks incredible.
Yeah, exactly the same. Just incredible work. Great symmetry, like you've said. Great Kubrick references without it being obvious. Great John Ford references without it being obvious. Great John Huston references without it being obvious. It just feels like a new version of all the films that I watched as a kid. It's like a new version of The Searchers. It's like a new version, and it with the soundtrack as well. I think the camera work is just as punk. It's just as punk rock, you know what I mean? It's just like this modern version of an old classic. And I think it all works hand in hand with the writing, with the performances are old school Hollywood, and they're very bombastic and beautiful. but it's the way it's staged, the way it's shot is very modern. Eli walking over to Daniel and have him reflected in the oil puddle as it just goes past us like a tracking shot.
Mm-hmm.
Elswit, to me, feels like one of them cinematographers that does have a voice, that does have a style, but he wants to make it Paul Thomas Anderson style. Every film that he's worked on look different.
Yeah.
Every film that he's worked on, it's what Paul Thomas Anderson wants to see on the screen.
Yeah.
That's how I see the cinematography on There Will Be Blood. It's like Thomas Anderson drawn that sketch, like Plainview does, of like, this is how we're going to mine it, and he goes, right, I'll build it for you then.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. It's fantastic work and thoroughly deserved for the Oscar, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One little detail that I love, though, is that PT used a very specific camera for the film to tie in with the setting, and it was a vintage 1910 Pathé camera that he happened to own. And he didn't use it for all of it. It was only certain scenes, but he did take the lens for a shot on the train where we see Daniel sleeping with the infant HW. So that's with a 1910 lens. Ridiculous.
Wow.
You can tell as well. It looks fucking great.
It does.
Yeah, I think the resolution's slightly lower.
Of course it is. Should have done the whole film on that one lens.
And they remove some colour from the corners of the frame as well. Gives it that old world kind of look.
Imagine that on the explosion sequence. It would have just been ridiculous. You probably wouldn't been able to see anything. The lens is like, I can't handle this.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elswit played a part in some of the colours used as well. We see a bowling alley in Daniel's house at the end of the film, which is very Kubrick to me. So PTA's original plan was for the bowling alley to be painted entirely white to make it striking, which I think would have been fucking great, actually. But Elswit said that you would limit what you could do with the lighting. It would bounce everywhere and it would just look too clean, I think.
Yeah.
And convinced him to change his mind so they could make it look more menacing and more dramatic. And I think that's why you bring in them earthy tones and them reds. And I think, that the fact that even the bowling pins aren't pure white, they're just wood.
Yeah.
Again, it's just really like unfinished and menacing. And black bowling balls. It's just,
Yeah, that shot up the alley, it's like a Kubrick-style one-point perspective shot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Brilliant.
For his work on There Will Be Blood, Robert Elswit won the Oscar for Best Cinematography.
Yep.
They finally beat the Coens, deservedly, I think.
Oh, it was Deakins, not the Coens, though. I mean, I feel I would rather have got like maybe Best Director for this and then Deakins getting Best Cinematographer. But I mean, it's so close to call.
Yeah.
It's so close to call. It's
Both
ridiculous.
ridiculously
I love both films equally, but I think this just pips it slightly.
Yeah.
And that's the crew section. PTA and DDL get most of the plaudits on There Will Be Blood, perhaps rightly, but clearly those names we just talked about, Jonny Greenwood and Robert Elswit, played huge parts too.
Absolutely fantastic, yeah.
The end.
The final act of There Will Be Blood, and we're transported forward in time. It's 1927, and there are two huge character scenes that wrap things up. Obviously, we're talking about the climactic showdown between Daniel and Eli, but before that comes the final confrontation between Daniel and HW.
Yeah.
So years have passed, and Daniel's now an alcoholic, alone in this huge mansion, alone except for his butler, that is.
Yeah.
HW is now married to Mary Sunday and visits Daniel to tell him he's moving to Mexico to start his own oil business, and Daniel takes it terribly. He disowns HW, tells him he's not his real son, and calls him a bastard in a basket.
He does.
He's a nice fella, Daniel, isn't he?
Sweetheart. What a sweetheart.
What do you think of this scene, Westy?
I think it's incredible. I think I've got a few theories.
Of course you have.
Lovely.
I think that he's a monster. He reveals that he's a monster, but we've always known that. We think he's an alcoholic, but he's always been an alcoholic. He's always drank through the whole film. He's always got the hip flask. It always kind of helps him through things. But we're still on his side. We're still with him. And I think when HW comes back, he does nothing but berate the fact that he's not good enough as a human being, which he totally is. He can talk, he can run his own business, he can, there's a disability, but he sees that as a complete flaw, which I don't think that is. I think that's something that you can build upon and be a stronger person for, and I think he doesn't realise that at all and wants competition and wants somebody to hate and wants somebody to put down and belittle. And I'm not sure he's got a butler. I'll go into it a little bit more in the next sequence, but I think this is all start of Daniel's mind unravelling into madness.
Right.
Lovely.
Yeah, I mean, all that great character work, that excellent writing we've had up to this point now starts to pay off in the final act because the character moments are just massive.
Yeah.
Daniel's behaviour is just off the charts,
Ridiculous.
Because we've seen his journey, we've seen his descent, we're here for it and we buy it.
Yeah.
There's two moments here that always strike me. First is that by this point in the film, H.W., Daniel's only son, has been deaf for what, 15 years?
16 years, yeah.
16 years?
Yeah.
And Daniel still hasn't bothered to learn sign language.
No.
That's just vile.
Yeah.
And really lazy
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Why should he, though? That's his point, isn't it? It's not even his son. Why should he?
But then when H.W. says he wanted to speak to Daniel, and Daniel says, you can't speak, so you just flap your hands about.
Yeah.
That is unbelievable.
Awful,
Get
man.
your dog out. Woof, 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 woof. That bit,
Yeah.
yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
The cruelty is almost cartoonish,
Yeah.
but like I say, we've seen the fall, so it all works.
Yeah.
But tell you what it is as well, H.W. is a good man.
He is.
Daniel, by hook or by crook, raised a good man.
Yeah.
There's that flashback sequence as well. This is heartbreaking.
It is, yeah.
A
Oh, yeah.
beautiful score in there as well,
Yeah.
when it's just him and Mary and they're just playing around. It's so powerful. And you just see that that's what he sees, and you know that he's really, really suffering.
Yeah. But H.W. was the best thing Daniel's ever done,
Yeah.
the best thing he's ever created.
Yeah.
And what he wants is right there in front of him, but he just can't see it. Daniel thinks he's strong, but he's not.
No.
He's one of those guys you see on Twitter who call themselves an alpha male, but most people just think they're pathetic.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it is a brilliant scene. For me, this is the best scene in the film. It's outstanding.
Yeah, I think it's just incredible stuff. We've already talked, like, it's got, the film in general has all these horror movie overtones in a continuous theme. And you mentioned Dracula earlier, John. This is very much Dracula, you know,
Yeah.
in that rambling house all by himself with maybe not a servant. He's like Renfield. You know,
Yeah.
there's just nothing human in this house anymore. You know, the whole film has been about Daniel being eaten up and consumed by greed and by hatred. And here, he does look like he's literally decaying before your eyes. He looks like he's just crumbling. So that reveal of him in his chair, just cloaked in shadows, the room's really dingily lit, but it's
Yeah.
but it looks amazing at the same time. That horror imagery is incredible, and I think that informs what happens now. Which, as you say, it's just that appalling treatment of HW, who still, after everything, still says he loves Daniel, but Daniel's so far gone. Any little bit of soul he had has now just been eaten away. And when HW says he's going to set up his own business instead of being proud, Daniel says, "So you're my competitor." That's
Yeah.
all he can view him as.
When he does that point
and he
down.
does that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's brilliant stuff. But then to choose this moment after sitting on the truth for so long to finally tell him he's not a son, it's just despicable.
It's shattering, isn't it?
It is. It's one. It is.
Shattering.
It's shattering. It's one of the most shattering things I think I've ever seen. So yeah, loads of horror imagery in there, and it's set up like they're going into the vampire's lair. They're going to slay the monster that Daniel has become.
Speaking of HW, we never actually find out what his real name is or what HW stands for,
No.
do we?
Human
they
worker.
It could be. Harvey Weinstein. That's why they don't tell
no,
us.
he's a
The origin
guy.
story.
He's a good guy.
But Russell Harvard, the actor who plays older HW in this scene, he's deaf in real life. So
Right.
that's one of the reasons it all feels really authentic.
Right.
I can tell.
I
Yeah.
think the way they age each character is fantastic.
Yeah,
It's brilliantly done. He looks like him as a baby.
he does.
And it's same with Mary as well when she grows up. It's
Yeah.
really, really brilliant. And that taps into me theory, but we'll get on to that.
Lovely.
In young HW, that was played by an actor called Dylan Fraser.
Yeah.
And what happened, the casting director, a lady called Cassandra Kulkundis, she'd gone around schools in Marfa, Texas to find potential child actors, and someone had pointed out Fraser to her. And she was really impressed because apparently he did some brilliant improvisation with her. So she recommended him to PTA, which is how he got the part. But bizarrely enough, on the night she went to meet him, she got pulled over for speeding, and the state trooper said, "Oh, where are you going?" And Kulakunda said, "Oh, I'm going to this address over here." And the state trooper went, "That's my place. You're going to my house." The state trooper was Fraser's mother.
Wow.
What coincidence. And she let Kulakundis off with a warning.
I know that he was only 11, Dylan Fraser. So when they were trying to convince Dylan's mother to let him be in the movie, his mother wanted to figure out who Daniel Day-Lewis was. So she rented a copy of Gangs of New York. Obviously, she was terrified
Yeah.
at the thought of her child knocking about with Bill the Butcher. So Cassandra Kulakundis quickly had a copy of Age of Innocence sent over,
Right, fair
where he's far more of a gentleman.
Yeah. Yeah. In the name of the Father, get that in there.
Yeah.
Good job wasn't my left foot. She'd be like, what the fuck?
Bill the Butcher gutting a pig.
Yeah. Amsterdam. I'm New York. Amazing. We also see Daniel's butler in this scene. His character doesn't have a name, but he's either played by Phil Shelley or Vince Froyo. Both credited on IMDb. So during filming, a photographer sneaked on and took a picture of whichever actor plays the butler, and then ran an article saying how Daniel Day-Lewis had completely transformed himself for this new role, alongside a picture of the butler. Again, really weird. It's really weird, and played by two people.
Yeah, that would be some serious method acting, that, wouldn't
Two
it?
method.
Like, face off.
Face off. Yeah. Changing his whole identity. Skin grafts.
So, big scene there then. Some huge character drama.
Yeah.
The last time we see HW in the film, and Daniel, what a bastard.
Yeah, but HW takes away his pride, which is incredible. I'm glad none of me is part of you, or I'm glad none of you is part of me, which is great.
Moving into the final scene of the film, and it's probably the most famous scene in the film, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, still alone in this huge mansion, still with a butler, though, Daniel is then visited by a second blast from the past. It's only Eli Sunday,
There he
wanting
is.
more money.
Coming back.
The two talk and argue. One thing leads to another, and Daniel bludgeons Eli to death with a bowling pin.
Yep.
As you do.
Yes,
Okay.
he does.
He's finished. It's Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
How's this as a way to wrap it all up, Matt?
It's brilliant. It's insane. It's crazy, and it's really, really, really funny at the same time. Like, once you get over the shock of the first viewing, this
Yeah.
is just pure black comedy. Like,
There will be comedy.
I don't understand why Eli rocks up after all this time and thinks he can have a normal conversation with Daniel, catch up
Crazy.
after all these times. And as much as Daniel is completely despicable by this point, I can't help enjoying how much he tortures Eli here. Like, telling him he's got to confess he's a false prophet, and he says, say it like you mean it. Like, that's what you say to one of your kids when you've caught them, like, beating up the sibling, and you make them apologise.
It's when he doesn't finish either. He goes, and you have a full congregation, so... He doesn't tell him any more than that, just so...
No, it's brilliant. And after Eli goes through all that, Daniel just says really casually, those areas have been drilled. Brilliant.
Oh,
Yeah.
brutal.
Just completely cuts him down. And one bit I'd overlooked for so long, and it only really made me laugh, like last week when I watched it, when Eli is crying about how he's in trouble, the Lord hasn't helped him, the devil's interfered. He goes, he's completely failed to alert me to the recent panic in our economy. Like,
Yeah.
don't think that's how God works. I don't think God tells you that kind of stuff, like tips on
Really
the stock
specific.
market. Really specific.
Yeah.
Really odd thing to complain about. But that final eruption you get from Day-Lewis, which he's been building up to, it's so funny. I mean, just yelling drainage. It's such a funny word to yell at someone.
Brilliant.
I love the way he just waddles over to Eli when he's mimicking drinking the milkshake. That's really
yeah.
funny.
Yeah. It's when he does that little skip as well, when Eli just gets there. He's like, I got us a drink, and he's just skipping on the floor, and he's like, I need a hit here. I need a drink.
It's brilliant. And then just the way it just... The way it descends into Eli running around the room, yelping like a little girl, dodging the bowling pins being thrown at him, the bowling ball. Daniel's going, I told you I would eat you up. Like, absolutely farcical. It shouldn't work. It shouldn't work, but it does.
Yeah.
And like I say, it's hilarious at the same time. What an amazing end.
Yeah. Drainage, Eli.
Drainage, you boy.
Yeah, I mean, just when I thought there wasn't going to be any blood, boom, Anderson delivers. I mean, whenever I hear somebody use the phrase, like, powerhouse acting performance, I always think of Daniel Day-Lewis, specifically in this film, and even more specifically in this scene.
Yeah.
He's huge. That Dano manages to not be swallowed alive is an achievement in itself.
Yeah.
But what a finale. I mean, by this point in his life, Daniel is barely human anymore. He's just a big ball of greed and hate. It's not enough that Eli's there to beg him for money. He wants to hear him renounce his faith. And after he does, Daniel does just say, those areas have been drilled. He then brings up Paul and hammers home how he's the better brother.
Yeah.
Eli is totally destroyed. And it's still not enough for Daniel. He then beats him to death with a bowling pin, which isn't the most dignified death I've ever seen, to be honest. And Daniel's final line, the final line of the film, is, I'm finished.
Yeah.
That's a great line.
Yeah.
He is finished. But the thing is, Daniel's achieved everything he tried to achieve. He's found oil, built a business, became rich, defeated in his way Eli. He's achieved everything that he tried to achieve, but nothing that he wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
He's still where he didn't want to be,
Yeah.
alone, except for the butler. Only now, he's got a bigger house. And also, when we first get to this scene, and Daniel's asleep with his head on the bowling lane, that cannot be comfortable. Surely. It looks so uncomfortable, that sleeping position.
Yeah, I mean, everything you guys have said taps into my final theory on the end of There Will Be Blood, which is
Lovely.
that I don't believe that this sequence is actually reality at all. I think it's Daniel playing it out after the pain of losing HW and him walking out. So he's lying on the alley, like you just said, John, really uncomfortable position. The butler comes and wakes him up, cannot wake him up. You've got a visitor, doesn't respond, not at all.
Right.
And it's only until he's there with Eli and the butler's way in the background, almost watching him dream it. And then he says, it's Eli. Then he wakes up and goes, yes, it is. And then everything he says is just perfect for what that character wants to say to that person. Eli has not aged, and it's 16 years.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
point.
Everyone else, HW has, even Daniel has. Everyone is just, and he's been so anal about getting everybody look the same. Mary has. Everyone looks the same as when they were kids, to the next, to the next. And for Thomas Anderson to overlook that, I think there might be something deeper in there.
Right.
And when Eli shows up, he's exactly as he looked when he got on the train to leave, when he got his money to elope, to go and do the mission. And he basically gets his own back on him, and he gets him to say that he's a false prophet. He gets him to say that God is a superstition, and he gets to hammer his fucking head into the ground. He can't escape. Eli's just walked in through that entrance, and he tries the doors, and he can't get out the doors. And then when he beats him to death, the butler comes back in and doesn't react to anything. He just says Mr. Daniel. He doesn't even call him his real name.
Yeah.
He doesn't say Mr. Plainview. He's not really a character where you feel he's grounded. And he's sat up. If you watch when the butler goes to wake him up before Eli comes in, and where he ends up, it's basically him just getting up out of a dream and sitting up, and him just going, I'm finished. And doesn't. You would react if you smash someone's fucking head in. He's not just going to go, Mr. Daniels, everything all right? He's just going to go, what the fuck's going on here? And what kind of butler would let him set up a firing range in his house? Like, bring his son back in and just start screaming down the corridor, and he's just eating steak again, and it's cold, and it's been on the floor, and he's just drinking whatever he can. To me, it's a cathartic exercise to say that Daniel Plainview's never, ever, ever, ever going to get redemption. He's never, ever going to find what he wants to. He's never going to get closure. So he has to do it himself in his own mind. And he's been driven to madness looking for it. That's what I get from the end of the film.
Do you think it's all in Daniel's head?
I think the whole final sequences, I think the whole bowling alley, it doesn't happen. It's just him trying to get it right in his head. And then he says, I'm finished because I'm not thinking about this shit anymore.
It's all about winning for Daniel, isn't it?
Exactly. Even if it's just in his own mind.
Well, see what you think of that, listeners. Westy Theory.
Brilliant.
We'll see. We'll see.
The only slight change they made to the end, though, because it was always going around with Daniel killing Eli, but originally Daniel used a silver tumbler to kill him instead of the bowling pin, but PTA changed it because he thought it'd be less graphic with the bowling pin.
I mean, it's still pretty graphic.
Yeah, I
isn't
was
it?
going to say. I don't know how graphic it originally was.
Again, I mean, killing him with what he originally found to start his empire, if he killed him with silver, that would have just been even better.
Yeah.
And that original ending, apparently after he'd killed Eli, Daniel then threw his body through the bowling pins. So it ended with a strike.
Strike and oil.
Yeah, exactly.
All ties in.
Full circle.
There's too many things to put in here. There's too many ideas. We mentioned how the mansion where the finale was filmed was built by Edward Dehaney for his son, Ned Dehaney. But that's not the only link with the film. In 1929, Ned Dehaney and his assistant, Hugh Plunkett, were found dead by Dehaney's wife. Apparently it was murder-suicide by Plunkett. The rumour was that they were lovers. Or bad bowlers.
Wow. Yeah, well, he actually shot Ned Doheny, then himself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, difficult to beat yourself to death with a bowling pin.
Yeah.
I
I
think.
don't know, like, give it a bash.
But also, this mansion, Greystone Mansion it's called, has been in many other films too. Did you know that?
Hey, man.
Castle Grayskull.
That's Grayskull, sorry.
I think my Masters of the Universe
Yeah,
there.
you were like, what do you mean? Was it? This is something I don't know about Masters of the Universe.
Impossible.
Impossible.
So it has been Wayne Manor in Batman and Robin.
Oh, right, yes,
right,
okay.
okay.
Yeah.
It's Jeffrey Lebowski's mansion in The Big Lebowski.
Oh, nice.
It's in The Bodyguard,
Of course it is.
Right.
Ghostbusters 2, Indecent Proposal, The Prestige, The Social Network, X-Men, and all three Sam Raimi Spider-Man films.
Right.
Okay.
It never looks the same in all of them films. It looks different
No, it
every
doesn't.
single one. How many fucking rooms is in there?
So probably almost certainly the most iconic line here, I drink your milkshake.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of real, because PDA, he had some transcripts from the 1920s, and Wesley's mentioned this already, the Teapot Dome scandal, which is where oil companies had been bribing officials for land, but they were using milkshake as an analogy for oil in these transcripts.
Right.
But then also in 2003, there was an American senator called Pete Dominici, and he said that drilling oil was like a child drinking milkshake in the kitchen from their bedroom.
Either way, it's a superb line.
Yeah, it's a
To be
pretty fair
fair.
line.
I drink it up.
I wonder if those transcripts also included someone going, drainage. Drainage, Eli.
I am the third revelation.
That bit when I haven't mentioned it, but he's thrown the balls at him. But there's that low shot when he hits that bucket of water or whatever it is, and it hits the camera lens. But then he still powers on. I am the third revelation. Even though that I would just be over the moon that I hit that. I'd be like, yes, I got that. Did you get that? Do the fucking scene, man. But he's still like that perfect hit, and then stomps into that bit. It's incredible.
And staying on the milkshake theme, which I want to for as long as possible, obviously.
Yep.
Also, the fake oil that they use throughout the movie, that solution apparently included the same stuff that McDonald's put in their chocolate milkshake.
Really?
Ooh. Yeah.
Healthy.
So, must taste nice, I bet.
No wonder the fucking machine never worked.
And to get us across the line here, we have our third and final question from our patrons.
Okay.
It's on the milkshake line, and it's from Derek Noonan.
Hello, Derek.
Hello, Derek.
So Derek asks, I drink your milkshake is one of the great FU lines ever in cinema. I use it all the time, kiddingly of course. What are some other examples of characters screwing over another character with a great line? So Westy, you love a movie quote.
I do love a movie quote, and I don't know if it's screwing over, but really triumphant is "Smile, you son of a bitch" from Jaws.
Classic.
Which is fucking brilliant. You just want that "Smile, you son of a," and the way the bitch is kind of covered over by the rifle shot. I think that's really, really brilliant. Probably one of my favourites.
That is very good. I think the king might be Clark Gable to Vivian Leigh in Gone with the Wind. My dear, I don't give a damn. Potty mouth.
Yeah.
Also, though, equally as highbrow, I'm a big fan of Arnold to his landlord in The Terminator. Fuck you, asshole. Hard to choose between them, obviously.
Connery.
Everyone sounds like Connery.
Fuck you, asshole.
So 2 joint winners there for me.
Yeah.
And Matt?
One I really like is at the end of the apartment when Baxter finally stands up for himself to Sheldrake and doesn't give him the key. And he says, I've decided to become a mensch. You know what that means? A human being. And then just walks out.
Oh,
nice.
That's just a beautiful moment. That love that.
Yeah, gonna cry.
Yeah.
So this scene, though, I'm struggling to think of any other final scene that is famous since this one.
Since this one, 2007.
Bloody
yeah.
I think I would struggle as well.
Yeah.
But that's the end of the film. HW heads to Mexico with Mary. Eli's dead, or isn't, if you believe Westy.
Well,
and Daniel is finished. Intense enough for you?
just about.
Yep. Yep.
Reception and awards.
Paul Thomas Anderson isn't exactly a box office busting filmmaker, but There Will Be Blood did do very well. On a budget of $25 million, it took $76.2 million.
Yeah.
Anderson's the most profitable film at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And critics-wise, probably not a surprise to know that There Will Be Blood received mostly favourable reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Our man Roger Ebert, gave the film 3.5 stars out of 4. Very specific score, that.
Yeah.
And he said, There Will Be Blood is a kind of film that is easily called great, but I am not sure of its greatness. Its lack of women or any reflection of ordinary society may see its reach exceeding its grasp.
Right.
Not sure what the 3.5 stars are for then. No. Slammed it.
Didn't like it at all.
The lack of women, though, that is a bit of an issue, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is. I think the affection that he gives Mary is a little bit, for me, a little bit weird sometimes. Like almost like he wants her to be his daughter over HW and kind of wants to bring her on board as well and fusses her quite a bit. I'll look after you, I'll be there for you. But yeah, there's no strong female characters, but I think it's just, I mean, I might be damned for saying it, but is that not just a reflection of this time? When this happened, it was, they just didn't have any floor to speak. You know, even on the opening, if you watch the background when people are talking and Plainview comes out and explains that he's an oil man and everyone starts shouting and there's a guy just over his shoulder on the right. It's just, get her out of here, get that woman out of here. She's got nothing to say, get her out. And he's furious about a woman speaking as opposed to Plainview's argument. So I think that might just be a reflection of the time, unfortunately, as disgusting as it is, because I would hate Daniel Plainview to be in a relationship, because that would be horrible to watch.
Yeah, it would have been. You could be right. Reflection of the times, maybe, from PTA.
Yeah.
Empire magazine gave the film 5 stars out of 5 and said, uncompromising, intelligent and searing cinema. Along with The Assassination of Jesse James and No Country for Old Men, this is the best batch of Western set dramas in decades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John Huston would have been proud.
Big top 3 there. Huge.
Hell of it, yeah.
You'd be loving the Jesse James reference in there, Westy.
Too, right? Amazing.
That'd be a good classic episode, do you think?
Yeah, we have touched on it before, haven't we? But not done a
Yeah, we
classic. Yeah, it's an incredible film.
Yeah.
And Andrew Sarris called the film an impressive achievement in rendering the simulated realities of a bygone time and place, largely with an inspired use of regional extras with all the right moves and sounds.
All the right movies and sounds.
That's us, when we're branching into music.
Fantastic.
All the right movies and sounds. At the Oscars, There Will Be Blood was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Art Direction, Best Film Editing and Best Sound Editing.
Yeah.
And it won Best Actor for Daniel Day-Lewis and Best Cinematography for Robert Elswit.
Right.
Nothing specifically for PTA, seems a little harsh.
Does seem a little harsh, yeah.
Yeah.
But There Will Be Blood is regarded as one of PTA's most popular films today, and it was that way very quickly after its release. Success at the box office, lots of critical acclaim, figured heavily at the awards, and now a modern classic.
Oh,
Yep.
without a shadow of a doubt,
Rightly
yeah.
so.
Easy.
Sequels and influence.
No sequels to There Will Be Blood, obviously. Imagine, There Will Be Blood 2.
Yeah. The Dallas years.
Yeah. There will be more blood.
Plainview in prison for killing Eli. No words
Yeah.
for the whole film. Just him hacking away at the walls. It was a notable film on its release, though, the first There Will Be Blood. How do you think we've seen its influence since it was released, Matt?
I think its influence is mainly on popular culture because that ending was just instantly iconic. Like, everybody who's seen this can quote the milkshake line. If you shout drainage really loud, people will get what you mean, where that comes from. And certainly the character of Daniel Plainview himself just instantly went down as one of the greatest characters of the 21st century in cinema, I think, and just one of the all-time great villains in cinema.
Yeah.
But also, I think just the influence on PTA himself. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of all his films, but there's such a clear dividing line between this and everything before. And I think everything that's come after this does feel like it's a different director, someone who's more mature and is his own person now. So that's where I think the main influence is.
Lovely. One of the great anti-heroes, I think, Plainview, isn't
yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it brought this grandeur back to cinema, and it's brought this real kind of time to explore this epic nature of it. I think Tarantino said it best when he was talking about when this film came out, and I know he's very good friends with Paul Thomas Anderson. There's a good clip on YouTube of him talking specifically about this film, and I think you get the likes of Inglourious Bastards, you get the likes of Hateful Eight because of this. And it made him step his game up. And he said, I'm a better director because Paul Thomas Anderson exists. And Paul Thomas Anderson's a better director because I exist.
If I do say so myself.
Yeah, that's what he said. It was amazing. He said he was like Marlon Brando and somebody, I can't remember who it was now. But it's just like this. He likened himself to Marlon Brando, Tarantino. Just, But it has, there's these big sweeping epics that have came after it and, the later 2000s. And it is down to this, and it's down to like character again, and it's down to dialogue again, and it was down to real cinema again, and I don't think there was anything else. I mean, Assassination of Jesse James as well came after this,
Yeah.
which is this was a huge influence on that. Well, if he can do it, I can do it. It's that it had that kind of influence on Hollywood. It's got that real vibe to it, and it's got that real classic cinema vibe, which in my heart of hearts, I hope never ever dies, and we need to see more films like this even now.
Mm-hmm.
So no sequels for There Will Be Blood. Not yet. Anyway.
Even now, people are saying, like, the new Scorsese film. If you like that Paul Thomas Anderson film that you made in 2007, you'll love the new Scorsese film.
And Scorsese's going, hang on a minute, he's been copied off me.
Fuck off, I've done Silence.
Its legacy, though, pretty much sealed as one of Paul Thomas Anderson's great films.
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. It's his
Definitely.
best work for me.
Yeah.
All the right movies ranking.
So we're at the end of our There Will Be Blood episode. We've been through it all, and now is the time when we rate the film out of 10.
All right.
So, Matt, you want to start the ball rolling? Your summary and score for There Will Be Blood, please?
The bowling ball.
Yeah, it's just absolutely huge, this film. I mean, huge performances from Day-Lewis, and yeah, that really underrated performance from Dano, which just keeps up with it somehow. massive work from Greenwood and Elswit as well. The production design is incredible. But then you look at Paul Thomas Anderson and that run of Boogie Nights, Magnolia, Punch Drunk Love. I mean, that's a great run. But then he just elevates himself to a completely new level here of what he's capable of. And yeah, it sounds like a really obvious thing to say, oh, There Will Be Blood is PTA's best film. But I think it's true. I do think this is still his best film. I think it's a masterpiece of the century. So I'm giving it the full 10.
Lovely.
Nice.
Yeah, as we've said, it's regarded as one of the great films this century by many, and I definitely go along with that. Beautiful to look at, beautiful to listen to, and as a character study piece of one man, I think it really excels. The writing of Daniel Plainview, I think, is extraordinary. Mm-hmm. A man who wants the thing he never had, closeness of friends and family. He has no idea, though, how to get it, so allows narcissism to take over. He allows his anger and hate to grow until he's totally consumed by it.
Yeah.
And in realising that character from page to screen, Daniel Day-Lewis gives one of the great Hollywood performances, I think.
Yeah.
I would say it's a touch drier than I would like at some points, and the complete lack of women in the main cast, I do find a problem, to be honest.
Okay.
But PTA's best film, one of the best this century, and for me it gets a not quite perfect, but a big 9.5 out of 10.
Wow.
So
Okay.
close.
And Westy, your summary and score for There Will Be Blood, please.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I've watched it every day for the last week. Just trying to absorb it, just trying to get into the headspace of how do you make this? How do you approach this? The fearlessness of it, the grandeur of it, the scale of it, just the ambition of it, and everything pays off on every single level. Soundtrack, sound design, cinematography, performances, writing, direction. I mean, this is our generation's like giant. This is our generation's The Searchers. This is our generation's film. And it came out in 2007. And when, people are really getting serious into film, you kind of go, There Will Be Blood is the grown-up film to watch for us. It made you feel like a grown-up. Like, if you understood it, it's not Boogie Nights anymore. It's not, all these flash neon stuff. There's not cameras flying everywhere. You have to sit down and you have to watch it and you have to listen to it and you have to just get involved in it. And it's an immersive experience. It's a cinematic experience. I would pay a lot of money to see it again on the big screen. It is still mind-bogglingly good after watching it 5 times in 1 week. So for me, it's got to be a 10.
Ooh, lovely. Massive scores.
Yeah.
We opened it up to our Twitter followers as well, and some comments from them on There Will Be Blood. Lily Rose at Wave or Water said, one of the best I've seen, and I keep my 10 out of 10s for the very best.
Oh.
Storyline is clear yet sophisticated. All acting is fab. The score's progressive, and Daniel Day-Lewis's Plainview is stunningly good.
9.
I think we agree with Lily Rose, don't we?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
BP at BP Squared Head said, a hesitant 10. There are movies I like more, but the distance between them and this seems rather small. Plus, I know how large its reputation is among the film community, so fine. 10.
Right, he's just, yeah.
All right, mate.
Come
you
on.
Don't have to. Don't feel bullied.
Yeah, have some belief in yourself.
Yeah.
have some belief in your choices. Don't just do it because everyone else wants you to do it.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a hesitant 10. That's an oxymoron.
A begrudging 10 from BP Squared Head.
Yeah, I might as well give it a 10 because everyone else thinks it's great. He's not wrong, but fuck me, have some panache.
Oxymoron, panache, what you've been reading, Wesley?
I've got word of the day toilet paper. I've watched this 5 times in a week. I've had something else to read on a night.
And Ronak Kamat at Ronak_Kamat said, a straight 10 with very little debate. A masterpiece in every sense of the word. DDL is out of this world, and Dano drops a stellar performance.
Yep.
It's a perfect film.
Yep,
Yeah.
agreed.
Yep, agreed.
And as a counterpoint to all the gushing praise,
Okay.
Paul Macker at Paul Macker 20, not the Paul Macker, McCartney, I don't think.
Oh, well, we'll see.
Although, hey, who knows?
Who knows?
Macker gave a short review. He just said, there will be boredom. So, not so hot at the film reviews, Macker.
Not
Fair
really.
enough.
There will be boredom.
Bloody good songwriter, though, isn't he?
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, Doc's a good hero now.
And altogether, our Twitter followers ranked the film as, what would you guess?
9.
I reckon they gave it the full 10.
Right in the middle. It was 9.5 out of 10.
Wow.
Okay.
So that gives There Will Be Blood a score of 39 out of 40 in total. You can check our website at alltherightmovies.com for the leaderboard to see where it sits if you'd like, or not.
Up to
Yeah.
you.
Either way.
Totally up to you.
We're not going to bully you into doing it.
Yeah, we're finished.
But that is a wrap on There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
Hopefully you've enjoyed it and not been building your hatreds piece by piece while listening.
Yeah, I hear the worst in people. I don't want anyone else to succeed.
If you have liked it, please share us on your social media channels, as that helps us out a lot.
It does.
And if you liked it a lot, you can support us on Patreon.
Yeah.
So to find out more about accessing our podcast archive, bonus episodes, and supporting us in what we do, please visit patreon.com/alltherightmovies.
Worth an investment.
Yep.
Much like Plainview. If he
Yeah.
was to give that speech, be the same, John. Be the same.
Next time, Luke, Westy and Matt are following the money as they talk the 70s political thriller, All the President's Men.
Talk and talk and talk and talk and talk about it.
That's somehow won our Twitter poll. Luke surely fixed that.
Luke's
right.
He's doing laps. He's doing laps of his estate, screaming wonderful things.
Vote rigging going on there.
Ridiculous.
So please subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes and Apple Podcasts, and tell your pals about us too.
Yes,
that
please.
helps us out.
Please do.
Please do.
And socially, you can keep up with All the Right Movies on Twitter, where we are at AT Right Movies. Take a look at our videos on YouTube if you've not yet,
Yep.
which is at youtube.com/All the Right Movies. On Instagram, we are at @all_the_right movies. TikTok is at All the Right Movies. Find our movie group on Facebook to join in with all the movie chat. And our website, full of great features and our podcasts, is alltherightmovies.com.
Sure is. Get involved.
Yep,
What's stopping
absolutely.
you? What's stopping you?
Strike oil.
Exactly. Get that pipeline sorted. Patron pipeline.
We're all off now to see if Westy's garden's hiding some oil.
We'll see.
And come back next time for All the President's Men. Awards darling, and is now acclaimed as one of the great films this century. My name is John, and with me today are a couple of sinners asking for salvation. That's Matt.
They should have put you in a glass jar on the mantelpiece.
Connery.
Highlander's got to him, hasn't it?